In my past life, I loved Jin Yen for 9 years, only to drown alone in the depths of an unknown sea. After being reborn, seeing how Jin Yen still treated my love like worthless trash, I decided to let go. This time, I want nothing to do with the Jin family or Jin Yen himself. Wen Xing, have all the years I spent raising you properly gone to waste? Jin Yen stood before me with a stern expression. He gripped my wrist so tightly that the searing pain left me nearly speechless. 1. After Jin Yan's sharp rebuke, a loud clatter erupted. My back slammed hard against the coffee table, sending the glasses on top crashing to the floor in pieces. A slight shift of my weight sent shards of glass piercing deep into my soul. That familiar sting jolted me out of my daze. I seemed to have been reborn on this very night, the night I decided to stake everything and pour out 9 years of unspoken love to Jin Yen, just like in my previous life. The moment I mustered the courage and stood on tiptoe to kiss Jin Yen, he pushed me away in disgust the very next second. Get out. Jin Yen, slightly drunk, had bloodshot eyes filled with an anger I couldn't comprehend. For the Jin family's wealth, to maintain your privileged young lady's dignity, Wen Xing, you'd even try to seduce me. It was the same scene as in my past life. I forced a strained smile and offered no rebuttal. Jin Yen tightened his grip on my chin, his voice dropping to a warning tone. Wen Xing, you'd better behave. If you pull another disgusting stunt, I swear I'll throw you out of the Jin family for good. Jin Yen strode away without a backward glance, completely unaware of the blood steadily pooling at my feet. I remained kneeling on the floor in a daze for what felt like an eternity before suddenly letting out a bitter, self-mocking laugh. The love I've kept hidden for 9 years was nothing but repulsive in Jin Yan's eyes. As Jin Yen walked away, he seemed to be on the phone with someone, his tone unbelievably tender. What would you like to eat? The abalone congee from Old Street. Be good, wait for me. I'll go queue up to get it for you right now. And, who was it again? That's Tang Wan. She'll soon become Jin Yan's fiancée. Jin Yen left in a hurry, and I calmly watched him go. Professor, I'd like to participate in the architectural design competition organized by the school. Limping back to my room, I called my advisor without even tending to my wounds first. That's wonderful, Wen Xing, the advisor said with delight. You've always been my most promising student. Prepare well, and I'll write your recommendation letter. This architectural design competition was actually organized by the advisor to form a specialized design team for the globally renowned AC Group. If you're considering staying locally for work, be sure to discuss it with your family beforehand. Your professor has high hopes for you. Family. I hung up the phone and quietly gazed at the family portrait in my room. In it were Uncle Jean, my mother, and my beaming 10-year-old self. Only Jin Yen was missing, and from the moment I decided to confess my feelings to Jin Yen that night, I no longer had a home. I came to the Jin family when I was 10. Jin Yen was studying abroad at the time and hadn't returned to Beijing for a full decade. When we met again, it was already our final farewell. In less than a year, my mother and Uncle Jean were both killed in a sudden car accident. Rushing back to take over the family business, Jin Yen faced not only the turmoil-ridden Jin Corporation but also me, a child he had never met. The Jin family patriarch had never liked me and suggested sending me away. Clutching the little kitten named Yuan, I stood frozen in place, anxiously waiting for the adults to decide my fate. At our first meeting, Jin Yen was icy and detached, his expression unreadable. I looked at him timidly, feeling an inexplicable fear in my heart. Jin Yen would probably kick me out of his house without any mercy, but in the end, Jin Yen said, the Jin family can afford to feed one more person, let her stay. Those words were like a beam of light in the darkness, illuminating my entire life from that moment on. I thought these memories were meant to sustain my love for Jin Yen, but the more I clung to him, the more repulsed he became. In my past life, I never understood why Jin Yen detested my affection so intensely. Now, I finally see the truth. Jin Yen simply doesn't love me. That's why he doesn't trust me, misinterprets my feelings, and is convinced I have ulterior motives. On the day the Jin and Tang families were discussing the marriage, Tang Wan deliberately threw herself down the stairs to induce a miscarriage, yet everyone saw it as me pushing her with my own hands. Jin Yen was so enraged that he forced me to serve Tang Wan in the hospital for a full month. And even that wasn't enough, he also manipulated the study abroad opportunity one worked so hard to secure and gave it to Tang Wan. His face was like ice. Wen Xing, this is what you owe Wan, you must make it up to her. He also said, Wen Xing, if you dare hurt Wan again, I will have your mother removed from the Jean family cemetery. My eyes were swollen from crying. No matter how much I tried to explain, Jean Yen refused to listen. He was convinced that I was a gold digger, that I kept seducing him over and over just to secure my place in the Jean family and stop his engagement to Tang Wan. Through the machinations of old Master Jean and the Tang family, I was to be exiled to some obscure foreign country, forbidden from ever setting foot in Beijing again. At the final moment, Tang Wan finally dropped her facade. She personally escorted me onto the cruise ship with her entourage, warning me coldly, "The Jean family raised you for 9 years, they've done more than enough for you. Brother Jean Yen doesn't want to see you again, so he sent me to see you off one last time. Don't even think about trying anything funny, or your deceased mother will never rest in peace." This truly was the final journey. The cruise ship met with disaster at sea, and I plunged into the deep ocean. In my fading consciousness, I saw my mother slowly embracing me in the water. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. This must be the second chance at life my mother fought for me to have. Neither Jean Yen nor Tang Wan will ever take it away from me again. Ours is a mutual commitment. Tang Wan posted a photo on social media showing their interlaced fingers, the man's hands distinctly bony and slender with pronounced strength. I recognized it at a glance. It was Jean Yan's hand. His index finger adorned with the Jean family heirloom ring. Just like in my previous life, they made their relationship public on the very night my confession failed. 2. Tang Wan was quite popular on campus, and the moment she posted the update, the comments section went wild. "Oh my god, my goddess is in a relationship, I'm dying to know who it is. Hey, check out the ring on that man's hand. That's the Jean family heirloom, which should currently be worn by Jean Yen, the head of the Jean family, the Tang and Jean families." Mind-blowing. Did you define what perfect match means, or did perfect match define you? A message popped up on the phone. It was from Tang Wan. She sent a photo of Jean Yen, head bowed as he peeled shrimp for her, his usually stern profile softened with a hint of tenderness. I calmly read it for a moment before replying, "Noted, wishing you happiness." Then I silently turned off my phone. In my past life, Tang Wan deliberately got close to me at school, sharing everything with me. I took it at face value and considered her my most trusted confidant. Little did I know her real target was Jean Yen. She found out my secret crush on Jean Yen and started pushing me to pursue him. Her encouragement seemed so genuine and urgent. I truly believed she had my best interests at heart, but in the end, Jean Yen left me, and they made their relationship public. I went berserk and confronted Tang Wan. Tang Wan sobbed uncontrollably in front of Jean Yen. "Wen Xing, I'm sorry, I know you can't bear to part with the Jean family and Jean Yen, but I truly love him." Jean Yan's expression remained cold as he said, "Wen Xing, my relationship with Wan Wan is none of your business to question. You'd better stay away from her." They walked off hand in hand, deeply in love, casting me aside like a worn-out shoe, having been through this once before. How could I possibly fall for it again? Let them flaunt their love however they want. I turned and pulled out a thick stack of portraits from the cabinet, each one depicting Jean Yen. Tucked away in the farthest corner was a faded, time-worn love letter. At 15, I poured my girlish infatuation for Jean Yen onto the pages of that letter. I remember when I was learning to paint as a child. Jean Yen hired renowned masters from across the country to teach me, yet no matter how hard I studied, my paintings always felt lifeless. My teacher said it was because I lacked genuine emotion. At first I didn't understand, until one late night when I sketched Jean Yan's portrait. Every stroke flowed naturally, capturing his likeness with striking vitality. But no matter how skilled my brushwork became, these creations were destined to remain hidden from sight. Let them remain buried in darkness forever. The courtyard of the Jean residence was filled with acrid smoke. A cold voice came from behind. I jumped, turning around in a fluster. Jean Yen returned from his date. His sharp features softened. He frowned as he looked me over, then glanced behind me. I quickly composed myself and explained softly, "Some old things were an eyesore, so I burned them while I was at it." Jean Yen strode forward, sifting through the ashes to pull out a torn piece of paper. He paused for a moment, then let out a cold laugh. "Wen Xing, when will your games ever end? Do you think putting on this wounded and helpless act will make me do as you wish?" I glanced at what he was holding, and wouldn't you know it, there was the first name from that love letter, Jean Yen. My face stiffened for a moment before I forced a smile. "You caught me. Nothing ever gets past you, does it?" Since he was determined to twist my feelings anyway, I figured I might as well play along. "You, get the hell out of here." Jean Yan's hands clenched abruptly, his eyes turning frosty. I turned away decisively, quickly blinking back the moisture in my eyes before hurrying off. Late at night, I held the family portrait and stared blankly at the silent night sky outside the window. Mom, this time I swear, I'll live well. Right now, the most important thing is to focus on preparing for this competition. If I can secure a spot to study abroad, I'll finally be able to leave this place for good. The next morning, I headed back to school to gather some case study materials for my teacher to use in preparing my competition entry. I walked downstairs, quickly passing by Jean Yen, who was having breakfast in the dining room, and kept my head down as I made my way toward the front door. Stop right there. Jean Yan's voice was measured and unhurried. I looked up to find him sitting composedly at the table, gazing at me with detached indifference. Then he instructed impassively. Wan Wan is coming over for dinner tonight. She loves the chestnut cakes from that shop in the west part of town. Go wait in line to get some for her. I have plans today. I refused without a second thought. The chestnut cake shop in the west of the city is quite far from the Jean residence. Even if I set off now, I wouldn't get there until afternoon, and any further delay would mean I couldn't make it back to school in time. Besides, I already have an appointment scheduled with my teacher. Wen Xing, Jean Yen said with a displeased expression, Wan Wan came here today with the sincere intention of making amends and restoring your friendship. Are you deliberately trying to embarrass me right now? I took a deep breath and hurried out. Sorry, I won't be coming back tonight. Go ahead and enjoy your meal without me. Footsteps rushed behind me, and Jean Yen abruptly pulled me back. His face was stern, his tone leaving no room for argument. You're going today. Whether you want to or not. I've always been at Jean Yan's beck and call, but today's refusal truly infuriated him. I lifted my head to look at Jean Yen. What if I refuse? Are you going to have my mother removed from the Jean family cemetery again, disturbing her eternal rest? Jean Yen froze for a moment, then his gaze turned icy. Wen Xing, don't test me. I let out a bitter laugh and slowly withdrew my wrist from Jean Yan's grasp. The chestnut cake shop is tucked away in an alley, and it's quite a trek from the bus stop. A light drizzle was falling, and halfway there, the soles of my feet were already throbbing with pain and dampness. The cuts on my feet must have reopened. I probably won't make it back to school today. I just pulled out my phone to let my teacher know. Tang Wan's photo came through, her hair damp. She was at the Jean residence with Jean Yen patiently blow-drying it for her. I looked up at the endless queue ahead, a bitter emptiness settling in my chest. Love truly is the most helpless of human experiences. 3. Saying I'm not heartbroken would be a lie. It's not that I don't want to fight. I've fought before, only to end up drowning alone in the icy depths. How could I dare to repeat the same mistake? The phone suddenly rang. It was the teacher I had arranged to meet. She's never been one to wait around, and her temper isn't exactly mild. Wen Xing, what's going on with you? Are you coming today or not? I quickly apologized in a hushed voice. I'm sorry, teacher. Something came up today and I got held up. I might not make it to school. What's the matter with you? If you can't come, you should at least call to let me know. Students these days are getting more and more unreasonable. Actually, it wasn't even the end of the workday yet. But the teacher kept scolding me over the phone, holding back tears. I continued to apologize. I'm sorry. After buying the chestnut cakes, dusk began to settle in. It was hard to hail a cab here. Jean Yen was clearly trying to make things difficult for me today. I let out a sigh, hugged the chestnut cakes, and walked toward the roadside. By the time we returned to the Jean residence, night had already fallen. In the dining room, Tang Wan and Jean Yen sat at the table, chatting and laughing merrily. I was utterly exhausted, and my feet ached so much I could no longer feel them. As Jean Yen was serving Tang Wan some porridge, I silently placed the chestnut cakes on the table, turned away without another glance, and headed straight for my room. Wen Xing, stop right there. I froze in my tracks without turning around. Not even a greeting for our guest. Is this what I taught you? Jean Yen set down the soup spoon with measured force. I've never really understood why Jean Yen became a completely different person after I confessed my feelings to him. Was it simply because he looked down on my love? Tang Wan approached and intimately linked her arm with mine. Asheng, don't upset your brother. You must be exhausted today. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted you go buy it. Come get something to eat while it's hot. Your brother just served this porridge. It's at the perfect temperature now. There was something about Tang Wan's presence that instinctively repulsed me. I yanked my arm back from her tight grip. I was exhausted today and had no patience for Tang Wan's Oscar-worthy performance. With a sharp cry, Tang Wan stumbled backward from the momentum and slammed hard into the wine cabinet beside her, sending the bottles on the top shelf teetering precariously. Jin Yan rushed over and embraced Tang Wan, the red wine splashing down instantly, the wine bottle shattered on the ground. Fragments flying everywhere. I froze, knowing full well I hadn't pushed her that hard. Before I could react, Jin Yan stepped forward and slapped me hard across the face. Wen Xing, if you've had enough of the Jin family, you can leave. Don't flaunt your privileged attitude in front of me. Everything you have, I can give, and I can take away. You'd better remember that clearly. The frightened Tang Wan was pitifully hiding behind Jin Yan, her eyes brimming with tears. I fell silent for a few seconds, then covered my face with my hand and turned to look at Jin Yan. His chest was heaving, clearly furious with me. I never expected that the first slap I received from the Jin family in my previous life, after Tang Wan fell down the stairs, would come earlier in this lifetime. I opened my mouth to say something, but then found it ridiculous even to myself. What's the point of arguing? Jin Yan never believed me in the first place. It's a scene I'm destined to face sooner or later anyway. What difference does it make if it happens a little earlier? I dropped my hand and turned to leave the Jin residence. I won't disturb you two any longer. I'm leaving now. Aishing. Tang Wan's voice trembled with tears. Leave her be. Behind me, Jin Yan's anger was palpable. As I stepped out the gate, my numb heart suddenly ached, and tears began to stream down my cheeks. 9 years. And I still can't bring myself not to care. I stood dazed in the courtyard, suddenly catching the scent of flowers I hadn't smelled in so long. I remember when Mom and I first came to the Jin family. She loved it here so much. Uncle Jin was a kind and gentle man who treated my mother with great affection. She was very much looking forward to meeting his son Jin Yan, whom she had never seen before. My mother had filled the Jin family's courtyard with flowers, and their fragrance would drift into my room every day through the second-floor French windows. After Mother passed away, the flowers withered. Noticing how often I would gaze blankly into the courtyard, Jin Yan built a swing for me with his own hands. Though he always wore a stern expression, he never hesitated to give me push after push on the swing. Gradually, I grew up. The swing set had long fallen into disrepair, yet I couldn't bring myself to take it down. In my previous life, Tang Wan found it an eyesore and had it forcibly dismantled. I wept bitterly in the courtyard, but Jin Yan turned a blind eye. Now, I'll tear it down with my own hands. With little effort, the swing that held my memories became a pile of rotten wood. It turns out letting go is easier than holding on. Before leaving the Jin residence, I couldn't resist glancing back one last time. The dining room light was still on. No one knew I was standing in the courtyard. Nor did anyone care whether I had anywhere to go. Perhaps Jin Yan and Tang Wan were toasting each other, sharing heartfelt conversations and baring their souls. 4. The dining room light went out. Upstairs, the light in Jin Yan's room flickered on, carrying Tang Wan's coquettish laughter through the walls. Then the light went out again. What are you doing? A cold gust swept over me, drawing an involuntary shiver before I let out a scornful laugh. What was I even hoping for? Didn't I see this coming all along? I waited at the bus stop all night, and as dawn began to break, the first bus finally appeared. As soon as I got to school, I hurried to the resource room. After humbly apologizing to the teacher, I finally managed to check out the architectural design case I wanted. The competition is scheduled for next month, so I need to prepare thoroughly and create a better entry than I did in my previous life. For a whole week, I worked tirelessly at school, forgetting to eat and sleep. My desk was piled high with thick folders stuffed with dense notes. After finishing all the reference cases, I breathed a sigh of relief, stretched, and got ready to get a good night's sleep. The phone suddenly rang. It was Tang Wan. I hung up right away, but Tang Wan was persistent. The phone kept ringing, and I was afraid of disturbing the others in the dorm, so I had no choice but to answer the call. Wenxing, I can't reach your brother. Tang Wan sounded frantic on the other end of the line. I asked calmly, why are you coming to me if you can't reach him? That night you stormed out after the fight with your brother. I was so worried about you. I asked Jin Yan to go look for you, but he refused. We ended up arguing about it again yesterday. There was a genuine note of concern in Tang Wan's voice. Assistant Chen told me he'd been drinking and drove off by himself. I haven't been able to reach him no matter how hard I try. Drinking and driving. Has Jin Yan lost his mind? After all, Jin Yan raised me. I just can't stop worrying about him. I'll go look for him and let you know if I hear anything. After hanging up, I glanced at the calendar on the desk and suddenly remembered. Today is the anniversary of Jin Yan's mother's passing. no wonder he's in a bad mood. Every year on this day, Jin Yan would spend a night at the villa in Songshan. Yet he had no reason to ignore Tang Wan's calls. After a moment's hesitation, I left campus and hailed a cab to Songshan Villa. As I opened the front door on the ground floor, a chill swept in, carrying a faint scent of alcohol. Jin Yan lay motionless on the spacious sofa. The villa's heating had long been out of order due to neglect, leaving Jin Yan's face and hands icy cold. I went upstairs to fetch a blanket to cover him, then immediately took out my phone and sent Tang Wan my location. Jin Yan's sleep was restless, his facial features taut with tension, a faint trace of inexplicable panic lingering between his slightly furrowed brows. I crouched on the floor, quietly watching Jin Yan. Only today was he no longer the lofty head of the Jin family, but simply Jin Yan, the boy who had lost his mother in his childhood. Counting the time from our previous life, it had been ages since Jin Yan and I last had a proper conversation. A bittersweet ache welled up in my chest, and I could no longer hold back from speaking. Jin Yan, I'm really leaving this time. Jin Yan stirred slightly, causing the blanket to slip to the floor. I quickly picked up the blanket and leaned over to cover him again. His breath was ragged and heavy, suddenly washing over my neck. A sudden chill crept up my neck. My eyes snapped open. Jin Yan, who had been dead to the world just moments before, was now wide awake, staring intently at me. His gaze was dark and intense, a cold smirk slowly curling at the corner of his lips. You actually followed me here. I stepped back to keep my distance and calmly explained. Tang Wan couldn't find you and was very worried. I thought you might be here, so I came to check. Just checking. Then what were you doing just now? Last time your seduction didn't work, so this time you're trying to take advantage of me while I'm drunk and climb into my bed. Jin Yan sneered dismissively. And I started getting angry too. I notified Tang Wan to come here immediately. There's no reason for me to seduce her man right in front of another woman, even if I do have feelings for you. Jin Yan is free to be with someone else, free not to love me, but he has no right to keep pinning false accusations on me over and over again. You like me? Jin Yan sneered. No, what you like is the Jin family and their money. You're just like your mother. Didn't she marry my father back then because the Jin family was wealthy? That's a lie. I glared at Jin Yan. My mother truly loved Uncle Jin. She didn't marry him for the family's money. What about you? Jin Yan stared intently at me. You say you love me, but it's only because you want to stay in the Jin family, isn't it? I froze for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. Yes, I'm only after your money. I can't bear to give up the luxurious life of the Jin family. Everything I said about loving you was a lie, because I knew marrying you would let me stay in the Jin family forever. Are you satisfied with that answer? With that, I rose in despair, head bowed, and walked out without another glance at Jin Yan. Tang Wan hurried over, brushing past me in the corridor. My steps quickened, my mind set on putting distance between myself and this place, away from Jin Yan and Tang Wan, as far as possible. The highway stretched before me, enveloped in silence. I stopped in my tracks and looked ahead. At this hour, the road was completely empty. A deeper sense of despair washed over me. Songshan was so remote. How was I supposed to get back to campus? Suddenly, a car horn sounded from behind me. A champagne-colored luxury car pulled up slowly. The window rolled down, revealing a handsome face I recognized. Wen Xing, what are you doing here? It was my classmate Lin Yanqing. He had come to deliver some things to his grandparents who live here in retirement, and hadn't expected to run into me. Lin Yanqing opened the car door and waved me in. I sat dazed in the car as warmth gradually spread through my chilled body, finally bringing back some feeling. The car moved along the dark highway, Lin Yanqing slowly turning the steering wheel in her hands. I heard you're planning to participate in the college competition this time. Alright, I'll go right away. Are you planning to go abroad and not come back? In my past life, I was utterly devastated by Jin Yan, yet I still chose to participate in the competition. Unfortunately, with that final fall by Tang Wan, Jin Yan seized the opportunity to strip me of the chance I had worked so hard for, leaving me with absolutely nothing. If you don't mind, I can take you to meet with some other seniors in a few days. It should be helpful for your work. I turned my gaze to Lin Yanqing. Unlike Jin Yan's stern demeanor, Lin Yanqing possessed refined features and a gentle disposition. He belonged to the same college as I did, and our respective advisors maintained excellent rapport, frequently organizing academic exchanges among their students. Consequently, Lin Yanqing and I became fairly well acquainted. I accepted this gesture of kindness, the only genuine one I'd received in what felt like ages. If you're feeling down, I can take you to see the sunrise. The sunrise over Song Mountain after the rain is particularly beautiful, but the Jean family also has a villa here, so you must have seen it before. I smiled and said, I've never seen it. Lin Yanqing raised an eyebrow almost imperceptibly but didn't press further. The Song Mountain villa was a forbidden zone for Jean Yen and his mother. In my 9 years with the Jean family, I had never set foot there. Every year on this day, Jean Yen refuses to see me. I have a vague sense that perhaps it's because the affection Jean Yan's mother never received from his father was instead given to my mother. That's why on this particular day, my presence seems to bother him more than usual. I followed Lin Yanqing up Song Mountain in the dead of night, when the trails were empty and silent. Standing atop the mountain peak, I was somewhat astonished by my own courage. After all, under Jean Yan's strict supervision, I had always followed the rules and never stayed out overnight. Lin Yanqing and I found a place to sit. The mountain was shrouded in mist, and the pine forest carried a damp chill after the rain. Thoughtfully, Lin Yanqing took off his jacket and handed it to me. In the distant mountain ranges, a faint blush of red was already visible through the haze. It's coming, it's here. A sudden wave of joy washed over me, lifting the gloom from my heart. Lin Yanqing gazed at me with a silent smile. On our way down the mountain, I suddenly remembered some documents I'd organized earlier were still at the Jean residence. Jean Yen and Tang Wan are probably still at Songshan. I'm planning to head over there first to pick it up. The Lin residence wasn't far from the Jean family estate, so Lin Yanqing drove straight to the main gate. Wen Xing, I'll wait for you at school then. I looked up and saw Lin Yanqing's smile reaching all the way to his eyes. I paused for a moment, then found myself nodding. The car drove off and disappeared from view. When I turned around, I suddenly realized I was still wearing Lin Yanqing's coat, with pine needles and dew clinging to it. Oh well, I'll just wash it when I get back to campus and return it to him then. As I stepped into the Jean residence, Tang Wan suddenly appeared, her face etched with anxiety. Asheng, where have you been all night? Jean Yen and I have been searching for you like mad. That man who just dropped you off, was it Lin Yanqing? Don't tell me you spent the entire night with him. How could you be so reckless? Tang Wan's voice trembled with feigned disappointment. The moment brother Jean Yen asked you to leave, you rushed straight into another man's arms. Wen Xing, how could you betray the upbringing the Jean family gave you? Aren't you disgracing their name? I halted in my tracks, staring at Tang Wan without uttering a word. A sudden weight of someone's gaze pressed down on me from above. Jean Yen stood in the hall, silent and icy, his eyes fixed on me, suspicious, scrutinizing, mocking. My heart went cold in an instant. He must think the same as Tang Wan. 5. Why should I anxiously try to prove my innocence when the verdict is already set? Who would even care? Who would listen? Excuse me, coming through. I pushed Tang Wan aside coldly, just wanting to quickly grab my things from the room and leave. What's the rush? Jean Yan's voice was detached. Is someone waiting for you? So impatient. Wen Xing, impatient to get back to school, or impatient to shift your focus and latch on to the Lin family? True. While the Lin family may not hold the same status as the Jeans, they're certainly wealthy enough to ensure you live in luxury for a lifetime. I froze mid-step, staring at Jean Yen in disbelief. He actually said that about me. When I confessed my feelings, he thought I was scheming. When I avoided him, he took it as a sign of guilt, and when I spent time with other men, he assumed I was chasing after someone better. Ha! In his eyes, am I really that worthless? I turned my back to Jean Yen, lifted my head and let out a long, heavy sigh, then replied, yes, you're absolutely right, Ashing. Tang Wan said, your own reputation is one thing, but the Jean family is a powerful force in North City. If word gets out that you're involved with Lin Yanqing, it won't just affect you alone. How can you be so selfish? Tang Wan, I finally couldn't take it anymore. You're not even part of the Jean family yet. Who are you to tell me what to do? The moment the words left my mouth, Jean Yen abruptly stepped forward and yanked me off balance. He spoke in a chillingly measured tone. Wen Xing, you certainly put on quite the airs. Wan and I spent the whole night searching for you along the highway. She was so worried she broke down crying several times. And this is the attitude you give us, who needs her concern? I shot back defiantly. Besides, I'm an adult. Who I spend the night with is my own business. Freedom, Jean Yen sneered. Wen Xing, who gave you the nerve to talk to me about freedom? Without the Jean family, you wouldn't even have your life. Jean Yen was right, but I had already paid for my life once. I let out a low chuckle. so I deserve to be easily condemned by you. Jin Yan said, Wanwan is right, when you're out in public. You're representing the Jin family, every word, every action will be attributed to the Jin name. Did you think you could just fool around with men as you please? Fool around, don't touch me, no matter what I do. In Jin Yan's eyes I'll never be able to clear my name, will I? I'm exhausted, I said, locking eyes with Jin Yan and enunciating each word deliberately. How about I move out then? I'll cut all ties with the Jin family. And with you, will that satisfy you? The air grew still for a moment, and the atmosphere in the hall turned heavy and tense. Is that a threat? Jin Yan's voice was low and icy as he spoke. Brother Jin Yan. Tang Wan quickly stepped forward, linking her arm with his to console him. Wenxing has lived a sheltered life since she was little. Don't worry too much, she'll come back on her own once she's had time to think things through. Ah, Jin Yan casually adjusted his cuff. Fair enough, since you're so eager to leave. Free up the room for Wanwan as soon as possible. With so many rooms available, he deliberately chose to make things difficult for me. I stopped resisting and went upstairs alone. After rummaging through the room for a while, I came down with a suitcase. Downstairs, Tang Wan could no longer conceal her glee, while Jin Yan stood indifferently nearby, watching me with cold eyes. I quietly wheeled my suitcase out of the Jin residence. Bang! On the bus to school, my phone vibrated twice. I glanced at the screen and saw it was Tang Wan. Asheng, you know how much I hate cats. I've already thrown away that cat plushie from your bedside for you. The first time I met Jin Yan, I was trembling as I held Yuan in my arms, both of us equally helpless. In the third year after Jin Yan returned, it fell ill and passed away. I cried for days over this. Jin Yan then had someone custom make this doll for me. An exact replica of Yuan. Slap. Jin Yan said this way it could stay with me forever in the Jin family. I originally wanted to take it with me, but after much thought, I realized the Jin family is also Yuan's home. I didn't want it to end up homeless like me, so I only took that family photo with me. I never expected Jin Yan would let Tang Wan throw it away the moment I left. Every trace of my existence in the Jin family will probably be erased bit by bit. The tears I'd been holding back finally started falling, drop by drop. 2 weeks flew by with me shuttling between my dorm, the study room, and the library, the same 3 spots every single day. The seniors Lin Yanqing introduced me to were all accomplished in architectural design and gave me invaluable feedback on my project. My competition entry came together smoothly in the end. The night before the competition, Lin Yanqing hosted a dinner at an upscale restaurant in North City and insisted I join them. I didn't want to disappoint Lin Yanqing, so I reluctantly followed him. As I entered the private room and recognized the guests, I couldn't hide my surprise. These were all the judges from the competition in my previous life. Did Lin Yanqing invite them to give me an unfair advantage in tomorrow's contest? I felt somewhat displeased. If I could win the competition on my own merits in my past life, I could certainly do it again in this one. Besides, I won't meddle in Jin Yan and Tang Wan's affairs anymore. And no one has any right to take away opportunities that rightfully belong to me. Lin Yanqing noticed my displeasure and whispered a reminder. Don't be like this, Wenxing. Tang Wan is competing in this event too. Tang Wan. I froze for a moment. She never liked fussing over such things. Even studying this major was just a pastime for her. In her past life, she was completely devoted to Jin Yan, obsessed with marrying into the Jin family as quickly as possible to drive me out for good. Suddenly, the door to the private room swung open. I turned to look, and my gaze faltered. Standing there were Jin Yan in a tailored suit and Tang Wan in an haute couture gown. The two gracefully entered the private room. Jin Yan took the initiative as host, promptly having the waiter serve a bottle of Romani Conti to the experts. For Wanwan's competition tomorrow, I'd like to entrust this matter to your capable hands in advance. He calmly exchanged pleasantries with each of the experts in turn. All the experts recognized Jin Yan and immediately bypassed Lin Yanqing to approach him for conversation. 6. Mr. Jin, I have high hopes for Tang Wan. She has consistently demonstrated outstanding performance at school. Anyone you've taken an interest in must be truly capable. Despite Lin Yanqing being the one who organized the gathering, it quickly became Jin Yan and Tang Wan's stage. I remained calm, but Lin Yanqing's face darkened. Jin Yan, you've gone too far. Jin Yan raised an eyebrow, a lazy smirk playing on his lips. Oh, you can resort to extreme measures, but I can't. Lin Yanqing, usually so mild-mannered, now stood shielding Wenxing from Jin Yan, the tension between them palpable. But Wenxing, She's your sister, so what? Jean Yan's gaze was icy. I have zero tolerance for underhanded tactics. Even if she's a Jean, I won't stand by while she schemes for a study abroad opportunity, especially by leaning on another man. My face slightly pale, I grabbed Lin Yanqing's arm as she stepped forward. Let's get out of here. Lin Yanqing shot one last reluctant glance inside before finally leaving with me. In silence, Lin Yanqing and I walked out of the restaurant, while Jean Yan and Tang Wan comfortably settled in at their table behind us. I will win this. At the doorway, I looked at the somewhat dejected Lin Yanqing and suddenly spoke up, my voice soft yet resolute. Lin Yanqing stared intently at me. Wen Xing, I believe in you. The competition began as scheduled. When the draw was announced, I found myself scheduled right before Tang Wan. As my turn came, I gripped the USB drive tightly and walked past Tang Wan. Suddenly, Tang Wan called out to me with an enigmatic smile on her face, Sheng, you've got this. I shot her a brief glance and strode onto the stage. After plugging the USB drive into the computer, I clicked the mouse a few times. My hand suddenly froze. Where is it? Where's my contest entry? I distinctly remember saving it to the USB drive. How could it be blank? Classmate, are you not prepared yet? The teachers in the audience were growing impatient from waiting. My panicked gaze swept across the whispering judges before finally settling on Tang Wan and Jean Yan standing beside her. Jean Yan stared at me expressionlessly, while Tang Wan lifted her head and gave me a faint smile. Wen Xing, you're definitely going to lose. Someone swapped out my USB drive. There's a backup on the dorm computer. I quickly composed myself, went off stage to speak with the teacher, who agreed to move my turn later. I breathed a momentary sigh of relief and hurried toward the exit. Behind me, Tang Wan took the stage, her voice gradually filling the venue. The theme of my work this time is light. My footsteps halted abruptly, and I turned back in disbelief. Was Tang Wan presenting my competition entry? Time ticked by, second by agonizing second. My blood ran cold, my body turned rigid, yet I stood frozen, utterly paralyzed. Every technical term I'd burned the midnight oil to define, every case study I'd painstakingly gathered, every creation I'd poured my soul into, they were now being presented word for word with perfect accuracy from someone else's lips, with a final thank you. Tang Wan concluded her presentation. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Next up was another student. I stood frozen in place like a wooden puppet long after everyone else had left the stage. The teacher on stage called my name several times, and Lin Yanqing couldn't help but stand up anxiously, scanning the room. When he spotted me standing dazed by the entrance, he paused for a split second before rushing toward me. At the same moment, the teacher on stage announced loudly, "The competition is over." My tense body suddenly went limp, and I collapsed into Lin Yanqing's arms. I lost. I slowly closed my eyes, my voice hoarse. Lin Yanqing, I've lost. I thought I could win. In my previous life, at least I had a fair shot at competing. This time, Jean Yan wouldn't even give me that chance. Why? What did I do wrong? Is it simply because I fell for someone I shouldn't have dared to dream of? The final spot has been decided. It goes to Tang Wan. I still walked up to Jean Yan, mustering the courage to lift my head and ask him. Jean Yan lowered his gaze slightly. Wen Xing, you shouldn't have defied me. So it was you who gave my competition piece to Tang Wan. You've already arranged everything for her. Wasn't that enough? Why did you have to ruin my chance too? With a soft, sudden laugh, I said, so this is what love is. I slowly lowered my head and murmured, Brother Jean Yan, I really envy Tang Wan. Jean Yan fell silent for a few seconds before speaking calmly. Wen Xing, it's over. If you wanted to go abroad, I should have been the first to know, not you making decisions on your own. Without my permission, you won't leave the Jean family, nor will you leave the country. I stood quietly in place, not saying a word. Wan Wan and I are discussing our engagement at the Jean residence tomorrow. I don't want to waste any more energy on you. Pack your things quickly and come home with me, otherwise you and your mother will both have to leave the Jean family. As expected, Jean Yan resorted to using my mother to threaten me. Jean Yan took over the Jean family at just 20 years old, having been in a position of power for so long. He's grown accustomed to everyone's obedience and can't tolerate the slightest hint of defiance. But, if Mom knew, would she really want me to stay in the Jean family, suffering like this? Alright, I'll be back tomorrow, I complied meekly. Lin Yanqing stepped forward indignantly. President Jean, as the head of the Jean family, how can you side with outsiders to bully Wen Xing? What kind of? Jean Yan cut him off with a dark expression. Lin Yanqing, watch your tongue. Even your parents wouldn't dare speak to me like that. I grabbed Lin Yanqing's arm. Lin Yanqing walked me back to my dorm building and was just about to say something to comfort me. I suddenly spoke up. My gaze fixed intently on Lin Yanqing. Lin Yanqing. I accept the proposal you made to me last night. Lin Yanqing's face lit up with sudden delight. Really? Before we parted last night, Lin Yanqing expressed concern about potential issues with the next day's competition. He mentioned that his family's company has a partnership with a prestigious international architecture school, and said if I was willing, I could go abroad with him to further my studies in architectural design. That architecture school was exactly where I'd always dreamed of studying. Lin Yanqing told me he's a committed bachelor, but his parents keep forcing him to go on arranged dates. I helped him avoid the pressure to get married, and he helped me get away. It was a win-win situation. Lin Yanqing, remember to keep this a secret. 7. Before I went upstairs, I reminded him. Lin Yanqing gave a slight smile. Okay, I won't tell a soul. The competition was over. After thanking the judges, Tang Wan happily ran towards Jin Yan. Brother Jin Yan, Tang Wan was so frightened she fell silent. Jin Yan's gaze toward her was filled with unconcealed disgust. He hadn't given Wenxing's work to Tang Wan. He had merely allowed her to steal it, all just to keep Wenxing from leaving. Jin Yan stood rooted to the spot, watching Lin Yanqing and Wenxing walk away into the distance, his irritation growing even more intense. When did he start caring so much about other men being around her? Jin Yan had someone escort Tang Wan away. He stood in the shadows, watching Lin Yanqing and Wenxing talking downstairs. They seemed rather intimate with each other. Wenxing, have you really fallen for someone else? He stayed at Wenxing's school until dark, yet still couldn't figure out why he cared so much about Wenxing falling for another person. The black luxury car sped through the night. A dull ache throbbed in Jin Yan's head. The afternoon competition venue flashed through his mind. Lin Yanqing held Wenxing in his arms, her small frame trembling faintly. Was her love really this insignificant? She claimed to love him so deeply to his face, yet the moment he turned her down, she could just pivot and flirt with someone else. He had always intended to provide for her and take care of her for the rest of her life. If he hadn't seen that video of her from the night before her confession, if he hadn't heard those words she said, he genuinely planned to have her live with the Jin family, ensuring she could spend her entire life free from worries. Why did she have to push his limits, staying out all night with another man? Not only did she plan to go abroad behind his back, but she also tried to cozy up to Lin Yanqing just for an overseas opportunity. If Tang Wan hadn't told him, he'd still be in the dark even after she'd settled in a foreign country. His chronic headaches hadn't bothered him for quite some time. Lately he'd been acting out of character, shedding his usual aloof composure and losing that trademark calm demeanor. When did it all start? Right, it was the night before Wenxing's confession. After he watched that video Tang Wan sent him, Wenxing seemed to have had a bit to drink. Her cheeks flushed crimson, her words slurred and fragmented with intoxication. I like the Jin family. I want to be with Jin Yan. I want to stay with the Jin family. I've been planning this for 9 years. The last sentence was crystal clear. As long as I can stay with the Jin family and keep living as the young lady of the house, I'm willing to be Jin Yan's woman. Tang Wan said, I'm sorry, brother Jin Yan, even though Wenxing and I are good friends, I just couldn't bear to see you being deceived by her. She's been scheming for 9 whole years. Dead set on staying with the Jin family. To achieve that, she said she'd confess her feelings to you, make you believe she's been in love with you for 9 years. As long as she can be with you, the Jin family will be hers. Jin Yan couldn't believe that the girl he had so carefully nurtured was secretly plotting how to deceive and toy with him. How dare she use love to deceive him? But why did Wenxing's betrayal make him lose his composure like this? Jin Yan's head throbbed with pain as the long-suppressed thought in his heart grew increasingly vivid at this moment. Because he desperately wanted it to be true. He wanted to believe Wenxing truly loved him. Late at night, I was jolted awake by the shrill ring of the telephone. It was Jin Yan. My head, it's pounding. His voice was halting, hoarse and low. My heart skipped a beat. Jin Yan's headaches hadn't flared up in ages. Wasn't Tang Wan by his side? After a moment's hesitation, I rushed back to the Jin residence from campus through the night. I paused at the entrance to Jin Yan's room. In my past life, it was also the night before the Jin and Tang families discussed the marriage arrangement. Jin Yan's headache had flared up again. Though wary of his disdain toward me, I still chose to enter and care for him. In his dazed state, Jin Yan pulled me into a tight embrace. A searing kiss landed on my neck, sending shivers through my body, making me believe he truly cared for me. The next instant, clarity abruptly returned to Jean Yan's eyes. I heard him murmur softly, "Wan Wan." A sudden chill ran through my veins, and I practically fled Jean Yan's room. I stood at the doorway for a long time, the humiliation from my past life still vivid in my mind. After a moment's hesitation, I took out my phone and dialed Tang Wan's number. This time, let the Wan Wan that Jean Yan constantly yearns for keep him company. Jean Yan had already made me vacate my old room for Tang Wan that day. I went downstairs and found a guest room at random. Soon after, I heard the clip-clop of Tang Wan coming up the stairs, then drifted off to sleep in a daze. There's another reason I chose to come back tonight, with both the Jean and Tang families present tomorrow. I wonder if Tang Wan will pull the same old trick and take a fall down the stairs. Wenxing, my dress is a bit tight, could you come help me with the zipper? The sound of knocking on the door jolted me awake. Are they here already? I checked the time and was surprised to find I'd slept so deeply. It was nearly noon. In the main hall, Grandpa Jean and Tang Wan's parents had already arrived. Grandpa Jean never liked me. In my past life, he had a hand in making sure Tang Wan could smoothly send me away. Passing by the study, I overheard Grandpa Jean speaking with Jean Yan. Once your marriage with Wan Wan is settled, it's time to make arrangements for Wenxing. Have her move out, she's too old to still be staying with the Jean family. It's just not proper. I didn't pause my steps, I turned around. Jean Yan's answer no longer mattered to me. I'll leave on my own this time, without waiting for them to drive me away. Today, Jean Yan was dressed in a bespoke black suit, his features sharply defined and his expression solemn. After helping Tang Wan adjust her gown, I stepped forward to take her hand and said meaningfully, "Mind your step, Tang Wan." Tang Wan's smile deepened as she replied, "Thank you, Ashing." 8. Tang Wan and I walked through the corridor and gradually reached the staircase. The moment my foot landed on one particular wooden floorboard, a sudden intuition struck me. At the same time, Tang Wan's face twisted into a mask of horror. She suddenly screamed, "Ashing, don't, please don't." Then she quickly fell backward. I was prepared. Reacting swiftly, I grabbed her hand and shouted even louder than her, "Tang Wan, watch your step." Tang Wan and I tumbled down the stairs together, rolling all the way to the bottom. This time was different. I used my own body as a cushion for Tang Wan, tumbling down the stairs together. Thump, 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 thud. The moment we landed, Tang Wan's full weight came crashing down on top of me. My face, hands, and ankles were all scraped up, and my entire body felt like it had been shattered. My arms remained tightly wrapped around Tang Wan. "Tang Wan, are you alright? I'm relieved you're okay." Gritting through the pain racking my body, I barely managed to utter these words before collapsing to the ground. This time everyone saw clearly. When Tang Wan accidentally fell, I was the one who saved her. Ha! This absurd farce has finally come to an end. When I saw Jean Yan rushing over in panic, for a split second I almost believed he was coming for me. But in the end, he reached out and picked up Tang Wan beside him, then furrowed his brow as he instructed Assistant Chen to take me to the hospital. Just as I expected, everyone was thrown into a panic, and both families followed Jean Yan and Tang Wan to the hospital. At the hospital, they would discover that Tang Wan was pregnant. This was the last thing I would do for Jean Yan, as a way to repay the Jean family for raising me. I specifically asked Assistant Chen to take me to a hospital in the opposite direction. At the hospital, I gave Assistant Chen a grateful smile and said, "Thank you for your help, Assistant Chen. Please feel free to go about your business now." Everyone knew that Tang Wan was Jean Yan's main focus now. Seeing that I appeared to be fine, Assistant Chen didn't say anything more and left after settling me in. At the same time, Lin Yanqing's car arrived at the hospital entrance. Looking at me covered in injuries, Lin Yanqing was both shocked and heartbroken. "Wenxing, how could you be so hard on yourself?" I said with unnerving calm. "This is the only way I can buy time to slip away right under his nose." In my past life, when Tang Wan fell down the stairs and started bleeding, everyone discovered she was pregnant. This time, when Jean Yan carried Tang Wan away, there were no visible signs of anything wrong. They won't be able to pin the blame on me this time. Jean Yan will take good care of Tang Wan in the hospital. Thank you. By the time he realized what was happening, I was already far beyond his reach. Where I'd gone was no longer any of his concern. This time it's really goodbye, Jean Yan. 2 days later, Lin Yanqing and Wenxing flew overseas. Their luggage now held 2 additional marriage certificates. Wenxing rested quietly with her eyes closed. while Lin Yanqing watched her with unconcealed tenderness in his gaze. Before boarding the plane, someone from the Lin family informed him that Jin Yan had fallen out with the Tang family. He knew exactly why. He had arranged for 2 short videos to be sent to Jin Yan. It was his personal way of getting back at Jin Yan. As for what happened next, he had no intention of getting involved. He just wanted to take Wenxing away as soon as possible, even if Wenxing's heart belonged to someone else. 2 years ago, at a school art exhibition, he spotted a particularly striking portrait among the students' works, a painting of someone's back. That figure looked strangely familiar. He stared for a long while before finally recognizing the man as Jin Yan, the head of the Jin family. In the bottom right corner of the painting, there was a discreet signature, S. Being as perceptive as he was, he immediately guessed Wenxing's carefully concealed secret. It was from that moment on that he began to take notice of Wenxing. Often finding his attention drawn to her movements, he couldn't even pinpoint the exact moment he fell for Wenxing. Perhaps witnessing someone's profound affection can unexpectedly stir your own heart. Lin Yanqing found himself wanting to claim that deep devotion for his own, though he couldn't say when the desire began. Even though the Lin family owned property overseas, Wenxing still declined to live with Lin Yanqing. Lin Yanqing didn't press the matter, but he would always wait for her by the classroom door after each day's lessons. Her classmates teased Wenxing. "Miss Wen, who is this gentleman?" Wenxing blushed slightly, feeling a bit flustered and unsure how to introduce Lin Yanqing. Instead, Lin Yanqing responded with ease. "Hello everyone, I'm Wenxing's husband." Wenxing's lips parted slightly, but no words of denial came out. Well, he wasn't exactly wrong. Lin Yanqing treated Wenxing with unwavering attentiveness, taking her out on new adventures every day. Even when she declined to stay overnight, he'd insist on sharing dinner before letting her return to campus. As time went on, Wenxing began to notice the pattern. That day, Lin Yanqing was pan-searing steak in the kitchen and asked Wenxing to help roll up his sleeves. Wenxing complied, but suddenly froze when he turned around. In that moment, they truly resembled an ordinary married couple. "Lin Yanqing, you didn't marry me just to avoid those matchmaking sessions, did you?" On a sudden impulse, Wenxing blurted out the question. The usually gentle man now had a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Of course it is. I wouldn't want to marry someone I have no feelings for." Wenxing was about to say something when a sudden intuition made her look up, meeting Lin Yanqing's smiling gaze. "Mrs. Wen, you're not completely oblivious after all. I've liked you for a long time." Wenxing took a few steps back, her mind reeling with shock yet somehow not entirely surprised. Lin Yanqing fixed her gaze on her. "Wenxing, I hope you'll turn around and see those who truly care for you." Wenxing slowly lowered her eyes. "You knew all along." "I might have known, earlier than you think." Wenxing remained silent, her gaze fixed on Lin Yanqing. During this time abroad with him, she felt completely detached from her past, experiencing an unprecedented sense of ease and liberation. Lin Yanqing took her cycling, swimming, skydiving. They had mutual friends now, gathering for parties and picnics together. Unlike her previous life that revolved solely around Jin Yan, Wenxing suddenly realized she could live quite well without Jin Yan by her side. Jin Yan was no longer an indispensable presence in her heart, so why shouldn't she try making choices that could bring more joy into her life? Wenxing tapped Lin Yanqing's arm. "Your steak is burnt. I'd also like a sunny-side-up egg." Lin Yanqing froze for a moment, watching as Wenxing walked over, gently took out a bowl, and cracked 2 eggs into it with practiced ease, her expression gradually softening. "One well done, one medium well." "What did you say?" Wenxing ran away. Jin Yan stood in the psychiatric hospital corridor with clenched fists, his presence sharp and imposing. Assistant Chen reported with trembling unease. "Miss Wen, she insisted on going to that hospital." Jin Yan was seething with rage, unable to fathom how Wenxing had vanished without a trace in just 3 days. Tang Wan's betrayal now seemed trivial in comparison. A day earlier, he had received an anonymous video. It showed Tang Wan and another man locked in a passionate, intense struggle on the bed. Judging by the angle, it was clearly the man who took the video surreptitiously. The footage was recorded before Wenxing confessed her feelings. "I looked up. Tang Wan was diagnosed with pregnancy upon being admitted to the hospital. The medical report in hand indicated Tang Wan was 12 weeks pregnant, coinciding perfectly with when the video was shot." Jin Yan let out a cold laugh and immediately arranged for Tang Wan to be transferred to another hospital. Tang Wan stared at the video and medical report in horror. "No, Brother Jin Yan, I'm carrying your child, someone set me up. Jin Yan's expression remained frosty. Are you claiming you got pregnant? Without us ever being intimate? Tang Wan's pupils contracted sharply. That night, I was completely sober. Even if I had been drunk, I wouldn't have touched you. I don't care whose child you're carrying. I was just using you as a pawn to make Wenxing give up on you. A dangerous glint flashed in Jin Yan's eyes. But tell me, why is the other video different from the one you sent me? Tang Wan trembled as she looked at the video, which showed a slightly intoxicated Wenxing confiding in someone she considered a close friend. I'm grateful to the Jin family for taking me in. I want to be with Jin Yan, and I'll stay with the Jin family for his sake. I love Jin Yan. I've been planning to confess to him for 9 years. 9. The video Tang Wan sent to Jin Yan was edited. She used a voice modulator to add that final line, cementing the evidence that Wenxing was only trying to seduce Jin Yan for the Jin family's wealth. Jin Yan stared at Tang Wan's terrified expression and finally understood everything. Tang Wan, how dare you deceive me? At the same time, the medicine Tang Wan had taken earlier began to take effect, and blood slowly trickled from beneath her. Brother Jin Yan, please find a doctor. Save me, save me. Jin Yan took 2 steps back, his gaze icy. You took pills, so falling down the stairs was intentional too. You wanted to frame Wenxing. Brother Jin Yan, it hurts so much. Could you please call a doctor for me? There's no doctor here for you, Jin Yan said indifferently. This is a psychiatric hospital in the suburbs. Tang Wan, deception comes with a price. Wait to see the news of the Tang family's bankruptcy in 2 days. As for you, you can spend the rest of your life right here. Tang Wan was in pain and terrified. And from the neighboring ward, she could faintly hear the sound of someone going mad and smashing things. Panic-stricken, she reached out to grab Jin Yan, but the man had already turned and walked away briskly. Brother Jin Yan, Jin Yan, Jin Yan. Tang Wan grew increasingly desperate and unhinged inside. Who do you think you are? You clearly have feelings for Wenxing, yet you deliberately torment her, give her the cold shoulder. Good for her for running away. It'd be even better if she were in a plane crash or shipwreck. You wouldn't even know where to find her body. You deserve this. Both of you deserve every bit of this. Outside the hospital room, Jin Yan instructed the doctor impassively. Her condition is serious. Increase the treatment dosage immediately. The Lin family had concealed Lin Yanqing and Wenxing's whereabouts very effectively. By the time Jin Yan found Wenxing, 3 months had already passed. The moment he laid eyes on Wenxing, he knew he was too late. On a leisurely afternoon with no classes, Wenxing and Lin Yanqing strolled hand in hand to buy groceries before returning to their cozy home, both radiating contentment and tranquility. Jin Yan stood in front of that house for a long time. Well into the dead of night, he emerged from the shadows with an impassive expression, gesturing to the person beside him with a slight wave of his hand and murmuring softly, "Go, bring her back." Over a dozen people stormed into the room. When Wenxing woke and saw Jin Yan, she thought she was still dreaming. The next second, she suddenly realized she was in an unfamiliar space. She bolted upright in alarm. Where's Lin Yanqing? That instinctive concern sent a sharp pang through Jin Yan's heart. Him, Jin Yan's expression turned icy. He dared to take you right from under my nose. What do you think I'll do to him? Wenxing trembled. Please don't hurt him. I begged him to take me away. Why did you have to leave? Just because I don't love you? Jin Yan asked. He slowly sat down in front of Wenxing, his large hand gently cupping her face. What if I love you, Wenxing? What if I told you I love you? Would you come back to me? Jin Yan stared intently at her, searching for an answer that would satisfy him. Wenxing was straightforward, looking Jin Yan squarely in the eye. She said earnestly, even if you tell me you love me right now, I won't come back, brother. Jin Yan's eyes darkened. Ever since she confessed her feelings to him, she had stubbornly refused to call him brother again. So now you're actually willing to call him brother. Jin Yan's hand shifted direction and gently grasped Wenxing's chin. But Wenxing, I just can't bring myself to do it. We're already married. Wenxing cut off Jin Yan's words. After a moment of silence, Jin Yan suddenly reached out and pulled Wenxing forcefully into his embrace. Even if we're married, we can still get divorced. After 9 years of love, how could you just let it go like this? Tears welled in Wenxing's eyes. Brother, I've endured this torment for 2 lifetimes now. I've paid my dues. This time, just let me go. Jin Yan's body trembled almost imperceptibly. 2 lifetimes. What did she mean by 2 lifetimes? A sharp pain shot through his head again. As he collapsed, he caught the panic in Wenxing's eyes. Brother, Jin Yan saw another Wenxing, at home. She was secretly taken away by her grandfather and Tang Wan behind his back and put on a cruise ship heading to an unknown destination. In the blink of an eye, the cruise ship hit an ice reef and capsized, and Wenxing fell into the sea in despair. Her eyes were filled with terror and tears. In her final moment, she seemed to be calling his name. Wenxing died alone and forsaken in the deep sea. This girl came to the Jin family when she was just 10 years old. He felt no affection for her. But when he saw her timid demeanor, it suddenly reminded him of the night his mother passed away. At some point, he began raising her as if she were his own daughter. Alright, he doted on her, giving her the very best of everything. That's why, upon seeing that video, he flew into an uncontrollable rage. Wenxing couldn't deceive him with false affections, because deep in his heart, there already lay an impenetrable thought. He himself didn't know when it had begun. Perhaps it was when she was 15, draping a thick coat over his shoulders as he returned late at night, asking, "Brother, are you cold?" It was probably around her 18th birthday when she turned down his offer to study abroad, insisting she wanted to stay and keep her brother company. Jin Yan slowly opened his eyes, the overlapping memories from 2 lifetimes piercing his head like 1,000 needles. Assistant Chen stepped forward and silently handed him a report. "Mr. Jin, the results from your head scan back home are in. It doesn't look good. The doctors are recommending immediate hospitalization. Otherwise." Jin Yan glanced at the report and closed his eyes. My heart skipped a beat. When Wenxing rushed toward him recklessly, he shoved her away harshly. Now it was his turn to act recklessly, but there was no time left. A commotion erupted outside, accompanied by clattering and banging. "What's going on?" Jin Yan asked. Assistant Chen hurried out to check, then returned to report to him. "It's Lin Yanqing. He injured our men and broke out. He's trying to take Miss Wen away." Assistant Chen held his breath, waiting for Jin Yan's instructions. To everyone's surprise, Jin Yan, who had been silent for a long while, suddenly waved his hand dismissively. His eyes filled with desolation. "Let him take Wenxing away." Assistant Chen almost thought he had misheard, stammering in disbelief. "President Jin, and have the lawyer draft a will. Name Wenxing as the beneficiary." Wenxing followed Lin Yanqing out the door, then paused and glanced back at the entrance behind her, thinking of going back to check on Jin Yan. Despite the visible injuries on his face, Lin Yanqing still watched Wenxing with concern. Wenxing lowered her head in brief contemplation before murmuring, "Never mind." He then smiled at Lin Yanqing and said, "Let's go. The beef you bought the other day is about to spoil. Then let's stop by the supermarket on our way home and have hot pot for dinner." The two walked down the steps laughing, stepping on the fallen leaves together, without even realizing it. They held hands and slowly disappeared into the distance at the end of the road. Jin Yan stood by the window, quietly watching the 2 figures fade into the distance. Enough. He still had so much left to say. 10. In his past life, he avoided Wenxing not out of disdain, but from the fear that her affection might be insincere. His continued negotiations with the Tang family in this life were merely an excuse to search for any lingering trace of himself in Wenxing's increasingly distant eyes. When Wenxing fell down the stairs, his heart leaped into his throat, yet at the critical moment, he still ended up picking up Tang Wan under the watchful eyes of his grandfather and the Tang family. He didn't want Wenxing to face criticism because of his actions at such a time. At the hospital, Assistant Chen updated him on Wenxing's condition. Hearing she was unharmed, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he would explain everything to her after dealing with the Tang Wan situation. When he saw the complete video, he realized he was wrong about everything. He had missed the time when Wenxing loved him most. Jin Yan let out a soft sigh, recalling the first time he met Wenxing. Her delicate face and slender frame seemed so fragile as she held Yuan, gazing at him with timid eyes. The scene reminded him of his 10-year-old self, grappling with the loss of his mother. After their first argument, when Wenxing stormed out, he stood across the platform and kept her company throughout the entire night. On the night his migraine struck, he heard Wenxing approach his room. He thought she would come in, but in the end, she called for Tang Wan and left on her own. On the day they discussed the marriage arrangement, Grandpa suggested Wenxing move out. For the first time, he refused so adamantly. Finally understanding his own heart, Wenxing couldn't leave the Jin family. She was his. On her last day at home, Wenxing didn't even glance into her own room. Had she entered, she would have found everything unchanged. He hadn't allowed anyone to take it over. Yuan was still there, waiting for her to come home. Sadly, she no longer wished to approach him or even look his way. She left without hesitation, as if she had made up her mind from the very beginning. His girl, at last, no longer loved him, just as he had wished. Story 2. After confessing my love to Uncle Liuli, a family friend, he took me to meet a girl in a wheelchair. Her name was Fanyueshi, and she was also his future partner. Liuli said that Fanyueshi had lost her legs and her dreams while saving him, and he had to take responsibility for her. I didn't understand. Did one really have to marry someone to repay a life-saving grace? He didn't answer my question. In my previous life, I didn't believe that Liuli didn't love me and constantly tested his limits, until he watched as his subordinates broke my fingers one by one. He didn't even frown when he heard my heart-rending screams. I was completely heartbroken. Later, because my injuries were too severe and I could no longer go to the operating table, I was ultimately depressed and committed suicide by cutting my wrists. When I woke up again, I didn't hesitate to submit an application to become a doctor without borders. I stepped back from the position of his little niece. When the application was approved, I finally let out a sigh of relief. My fingertips trembled uncontrollably, and my eyes were red, but I didn't even notice. No one knew that I had been reborn. I was 21 years old. At the moment before I was about to confess my love to Liuli, that day, I was wearing a dress he had custom-made for me at great expense, and I had booked the most luxurious hotel in Jingbei. I invited many friends to witness the beginning of our love. Since I could remember, Liuli had been by my side. My parents were doctors without borders, and their whereabouts were uncertain. I saw them only a few times a year. Liuli had accompanied me through almost the first half of my life, the happy times and the unhappy times. People in the circle had tacitly agreed that I was Liuli's child bride in waiting. In my previous life, several of my close friends gave me a lot of ideas when they knew I was going to confess, which made my face turn red. I was secretly looking forward to it in my heart, but no one expected that Liuli would reject me, just like in my previous life. Liuli seemed to have already guessed what I was going to do. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he was rubbing his 2 fingers, brewing words to reject me. The emotions in the bottom of his eyes were unclear. At that time, I thought Liuli was just worried that I was younger than him and couldn't distinguish between love and affection. So I smiled and said, "Uncle, I like you. My heart beats uncontrollably faster when I see you. When I can't see you, I miss you crazily. It's an emotion that I can't suppress no matter what. I'm very sure that my feelings for you are love." The others also joined in the jeer, and it ended up in a hasty conclusion. And that day, I was still smiling, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. Just as he was about to speak, I took a step ahead. "Uncle, the research project that I worked on for a year was completed last week. I'm very happy, so I want to celebrate." Liuli was stunned on the spot. My friends also looked at each other in dismay. When they were about to speak, I glanced at them indifferently. Only then did they smile awkwardly and silently put the banner that read, say yes," behind them. A confession ended without a result. After the event, Liuli was smoking in the corridor with his friend. He leaned against the wall, and his slender, boned hands played with a gold-embossed lighter. The flame flickered on and off. His friend teased with a smile, "With this commotion today, I thought Seria was going to confess her love to you. I didn't expect it to be a false alarm." Liuli closed his eyes slightly, with a faint smile on his lips. "A little girl's thoughts. Don't guess randomly. I have no other intentions towards Jinue. Taking care of her is just because of the friendship with her family." His friend didn't believe it. "You're just too close to the situation to see clearly. Look at the way your little girl looks at you. Do you think we're stupid? If you were really innocent, why did you go and warn that little boy when he confessed his love to your little girl? You even pretended to be her boyfriend." Liuli didn't say anything. I didn't listen anymore either and withdrew into the darkness. In my previous life, Liuli was like this. His kindness to me had long crossed the line, yet he just refused to admit it. After returning home, I submitted an application to become a doctor without borders. After my parents died successively in the war zone, I wanted to carry on their legacy. It's just that in my previous life, it ended before it even started. Fortunately, heaven pitied me and gave me a chance to start over. 2. I looked at the reporting date, then at the desk calendar next to me. I took out a pen and silently marked the reporting day. Coincidentally, that day was Liuli's birthday. Suddenly, there was a knock on my door. It was Liuli. He was used to knocking twice and then coming in. but this time, there was a girl following him. The girl was in a wheelchair, wearing a white dress, there was not a trace of blood on her face, and her eyes were filled with a faint melancholy. She looked extremely delicate. Jinue, come here, he said to me. I didn't move. I just glanced at the girl. She was Fan Yueshi. I thought that without my confession, Li Yuli wouldn't bring her in front of me, but I didn't expect that what was supposed to happen would still happen. Jinue, Li Yuli frowned and called me again. Fan Yueshi saw that I had a cold expression. She lowered her eyes and said in a very soft voice, Yuli, it's okay. It's normal that Miss Shin doesn't like me when we meet for the first time. If she minds my presence, I can go back to the villa in the suburbs. I can't go anywhere without my legs. It doesn't matter where I live. I don't have to live here. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with tears, but they didn't fall. She was like a delicate little flower, pretending to be strong. Li Yuli's frown deepened, and his gaze towards me held a bit of disappointment. Jinue, uncle, you can arrange for whoever you want to live in the villa. You don't actually have to tell me. You're the master of this house. My voice was flat, revealing nothing, but in Li Yuli's ears, it was full of thorns. He thought I was throwing a tantrum. Jinue, you don't need to talk to me in this tone. I brought Yueshi to meet you today because I want you to meet your little aunt. 3 years ago, during the earthquake, she lost her legs while saving me. I need to take responsibility for her. If you still want to stay in this house, well, put away your spoiled girl temper and don't cause trouble for Yueshi. His warning gaze swept over me. I wanted to say something, but in the end, I remained silent. Actually, I couldn't blame him. I had an extreme possessiveness towards Li Yuli. Since I was a child, I hoped that I was the only one in his eyes and that the only woman by his side could be me. So over the years, he had no romantic scandals. Even if a woman dared to make a false claim, I would deal with her. All his favoritism and exceptions were for me. So in my previous life, when he was going to marry Fan Yueshi, I had a breakdown. Did one really have to marry someone to repay a life-saving grace? I thought about it for a long, long time. I lost my life. I still couldn't figure it out. Now I've figured it out. Some things just can't be understood. 3. Fan Yueshi was going to stay in the room next to Li Yuli's. It used to be mine, before Li Yuli brought me to live here. He secretly asked his friends for advice, then drew the blueprints himself and renovated the entire room. He turned it into a beautiful pink princess room. He also bought a lot of limited edition dolls and placed them on my bedside. He raised me like a princess. From childhood to adulthood, he always said, as long as it's something Jinue likes and can make Jinue happy, I will do it. I hope our Jinue grows up healthy and happy as a little princess. At that time, his eyes were filled with tender and affectionate love. It made me fall, but he had been standing outside all along. In the room, Li Yuli leaned against the door frame. After coldly sweeping his gaze over me, he said, I asked Aunt Chen to clean the guest room on the first floor. You can stay on the first floor for a while. I didn't say anything. I just folded my clothes and put them in the suitcase. Then, when I got up and was about to pick up the doll on the bedside as usual, my hand stopped. Li Yuli's gaze also moved to the doll. Seeing that I didn't move for a long time, he said, I'll bring the doll down for you later. I took a deep breath, withdrew my gaze, and forced a smile. No need, give it to little aunt. I didn't want Li Yuli anymore. What were a few dolls? It was true love before, but now it's nothing. Jinue, are you still angry with me? Li Yuli asked coldly. Why would I be angry with little uncle? I asked. Little uncle also has his own life. Now that you have someone you like and someone you want to protect, I should be happy for you, right? Li Yuli's eyes darkened, his thin lips opened and closed, but he couldn't make a sound for a long time. When I pulled my suitcase and left, Fan Yueshi was not far outside the door. Her gaze towards me held a bit of mockery. Just like in my previous life, she pretended to be a white lotus on the surface, but in fact, she targeted me everywhere and cried at the slightest disagreement. The tears of the weak are always easy to arouse sympathy. Miss Shin, I'm sorry to have inconvenienced you. If I weren't inconvenient, Yuli wouldn't have done this. My hand tightened on the handle of the suitcase. When I wanted to bypass her and leave directly, she suddenly grabbed my wrist. I reflexively shook it off. Ah! Fan Yueshi's wheelchair rolled uncontrollably down the stairs. Her scream rang out, and the servants in the villa rushed over. Yuli, save me, save me. When Li Yuli heard this, he ran out of the room in a panic, pushed me aside, and lunged forward to grab the handrail, preventing the wheelchair from rolling further. I stood there in a daze, my throat tightening. It wasn't me. The wheelchair was stuck on the stairs, and several servants blocked the way. Li Yuli quickly picked Fan Yueshi up in his arms and walked up to me. The servants also cooperatively carried the wheelchair over. Yuli. I was so scared, I thought I was going to die. Her eyes were completely red, and the fear in her eyes was real. After Li Yuli soothed Fan Yueshi, he looked at me angrily. Shinjinue, are you crazy? If something really happened to Yueshi, you would be suspected of murder. Do you know that? 4. I bit my lower lip, full of grievances, and my nose was sore. I didn't, it wasn't me. She suddenly grabbed my hand, and I just shook it off. When Fan Yueshi heard this, she said with a sobbing voice, it's my fault, Yuli, don't blame Miss Shin. I didn't lock the wheelchair just now, so this happened. Yueshi, you don't need to speak for Jinue anymore, Li Yuli said coldly. I know what kind of temper she has. Over the years, she has used petty tricks to drive away all the women who got close to me. I couldn't help but laugh, with tears in the corners of my eyes. So little uncle, you don't believe me, right? Are you worthy of my trust? He countered. Yes, I'm not worthy. Only Fan Yueshi is worthy. You believe whatever she says. After saying that, I pulled my suitcase and wanted to leave, but Li Yuli asked the servants to stop me. He said, apologize. I looked back at Li Yuli in disbelief. He repeated, Yueshi has been wronged for no reason. You should apologize. What if I don't? I asked with tears in my eyes. I thought that when I faced such a scene again, I could face it calmly, but I overestimated myself. When all the previous favoritism turned into a sharp sword and stabbed at me. It really hurt so much. You know my methods, Li Yuli said coldly. He looked at the servants behind me. The servants looked at each other. Just as they were about to step forward and press my shoulders, I sneered self-deprecatingly. I let go of the handle of the suitcase and bent down to apologize to Fan Yueshi. I was wrong about what happened today. I shouldn't have shaken off your hand when you grabbed me. I'm sorry for almost making you fall. Fan Yueshi was stunned for 2 seconds. And Li Yuli's expression also became solemn. After I stood up, I looked at Li Yuli. Little uncle, is it okay now? If not, I can kneel, I said. Li Yuli's eyes were full of complex emotions, and in the end, he didn't say anything. I pulled my suitcase and went downstairs. As soon as I reached the first floor, Aunt Chin said, Sir is probably in a bad mood today. Miss, don't be angry with Sir. Over the years, we've all seen how much Sir dotes on you. She was speaking for Li Yuli while trying to take my suitcase. I just smiled. In the past, when Li Yuli and I quarreled, Aunt Chin would always be the peacemaker. After all these years, Aunt Chin was still the same, but Li Yuli and I could never go back to the past. Miss, aren't you going to the guest room? She asked in surprise. I shook my head. No, but sir, please tell little uncle for me that thank you for taking care of me before. I won't bother him anymore in the future, this life. This is enough. I don't want to bear the pain of my previous life again. 5. After Li Yuli settled Fan Yueshi, he called Aunt Chen and asked her to bring up the surveillance footage from the corridor just now. When Aunt Chen came, she hesitated to speak. Actually, he believed Shinjinue. Over the years, although she used petty tricks to keep those women away from him, they were all harmless. She knew where the bottom line was. So when he saw from the surveillance that it was Fan Yueshi who took the initiative to provoke Shinjinue first, he didn't react much. He owed Fan Yueshi a life. As long as Fan Yueshi wasn't too excessive, he could let her do anything. I knew that Miss wouldn't hurt anyone, Aunt Chin said indignantly. Li Yuli rubbed his forehead. Make something Jinue likes to eat tonight, but Miss has already left. Li Yuli was immediately stunned. What? Miss asked me to tell you that thank you for taking care of her before. She won't bother you anymore in the future. Aunt Chin said it a bit sarcastically. Li Yuli didn't blame her. He just let out a tired sigh. Jinue has this kind of temper. She can't bear the slightest bit of grievance. After he asked Aunt Chen to go out first to prepare dinner, he called Shinjinue, but Shinjinue didn't answer. The more he called, the more irritable he became, and finally he threw his phone on the desk. Actually, since half a month ago, starting from the day he originally thought Shinjinue was going to confess to him, he had always been inexplicably irritable, especially when he met Shinjinue's eyes and heard her speaking in that indifferent tone. He always felt as if something was slipping out of his control. Now, it seemed that all the answers were about to surface. 6. It wasn't a surprise to me that Li Yuli could find me. There were still 7 days until the reporting date. After leaving the villa, I went back to my own home. Li Yuli was standing outside the courtyard. The cigarette in his 2 fingers glowed brightly and dimmed, and his brows were tightly furrowed. I had just come back from the hospital and saw him, off work. I nodded and didn't say more. Suddenly, there was a deathly silence all around. He was waiting for me to continue, but in fact, I had nothing more to say, until his phone rang. It was Fang Yueshi's call. Li Yuli didn't avoid me and swiped to answer it on the spot. Her delicate sobs came from the other side. Yuli, I had a nightmare. I dreamed about that earthquake. I dreamed that I couldn't save you. Can you come back and stay with me? She was asking tentatively. Li Yuli subconsciously looked at me. By then, it was already dark. I lowered my eyes to look at the elongated shadow on the ground, with a calm expression. After a long time, I heard him say, I'll be back right away. The call ended. Li Yuli was about to hold my hand, but I frowned and avoided it. His movement froze. When he looked at me, there was a bit more confusion in his eyes. He probably forgot. In the past, our intimacy was because I regarded him as my beloved little uncle. You have little aunt now. We shouldn't cross the line anymore, I said in a calm tone. Li Yuli sneered and retracted his hand, pretending to be calm as he put it into his pocket. I know you can't accept my relationship with Yueshi for a while, but it's okay. I can wait until you can accept it before getting engaged to her. For now, just get to know and adapt to each other. I didn't speak and remained silent. In my previous life, ever since Fang Yueshi appeared, Li Yuli and I never had a day of talking properly. We quarreled as soon as we met. He scolded me for being shameless for falling in love with my little uncle. He also said that I couldn't distinguish between family affection and love. He pushed me away step by step, but I was as persistent as a wall. Even though I was stabbed all over by all those vicious words, my friends, his friends, all tried to persuade me. Li Yuli doesn't like you. Why don't you believe it? He likes Fang Yueshi. Every time, I would cry and say no, that Li Yuli loved me. On my 18th birthday when I became an adult, he thought I was asleep and secretly kissed me. He said he would marry me when I turned 22. I always firmly believed that Li Yuli was only going to marry Fang Yueshi to repay her kindness. Until that day, the Xiao family wanted to take me away at the bar. I had no contact with the Xiao family and didn't understand why they wanted to arrest me. Until the second eldest of the Xiao family said that the old man of the Xiao family had a cerebral infarction. I suddenly understood. Li Yuli had said that the people from the Xiao family had looked for me. He said that the Xiao family's hands were dirty and told me to keep my distance from them. But I never knew that the Xiao family was looking for me because of the old man of the Xiao family. They sincerely asked me to perform the surgery. I cried and refused to leave. My pale knuckles tightly grabbed the corner of Li Yuli's clothes, but he coldly said, "Let go." He watched indifferently as I was dragged away and as my fingers were broken one by one. He listened to my heart-rending screams. He didn't even frown. At that moment, I finally confirmed that Li Yuli didn't love me. 7. What are you thinking about? Li Yuli's voice sounded, pulling me back from my thoughts. You should have had enough of making a fuss these days. Let's just forget about what happened last time. Jinyue, you're not a child anymore. After saying that, he opened the passenger side door and looked at me. I stood still on the spot, with an ugly smile on my face. I suddenly really wanted to ask the Li Yuli from my previous life, why could he be so cruel as to watch me suffer, watch me become depressed and die of depression? Even if he didn't love me, I was still the little niece he had raised since childhood. Little uncle, what you said that day was right. Over the years, any woman who appeared around you would be driven away by my petty tricks, so for little aunt's safety, I won't go back. Li Yuli frowned. Shinjinue, little uncle, you know that I like you, right? I calmly interrupted Li Yuli's words. His pupils suddenly shrank. Over the years, I had never hidden my love. As long as one wasn't blind, they could tell. I believe Li Yuli knew it too. Jinyue, he looked at me in a dilemma. Don't worry, little uncle, it won't happen again in the future. I was ignorant before and mistook family affection for love, making a lot of jokes. Now I'm cutting my losses in time. I hope little uncle will forgive me. After saying that, I smiled again. Li Yuli was like a soulless person, standing there blankly, as if the few words I had just said were very difficult to understand. He opened his lips, about to speak. The phone in his pocket rang again. In the quiet night, it was extremely harsh. One rang after another. He seemed to still be in a daze. But I had already taken 2 steps back and turned to leave. 8. Li Yuli looked at Shinjinue's gradually blurring back and suddenly felt a bit lost. He habitually took out the cigarette case from his pocket and lit another cigarette. After taking a big puff, he came back to his senses a little. He looked up. The light in the room on the 2nd floor of the villa had already been turned on. And Shinjinua's figure was reflected on the curtain, 3 years ago, when Shinjinue turned 18. On her coming-of-age day, he was drunk and confusedly entered Shinjinue's room, looking at the sleeping little girl. In a moment of drunkenness, he crossed the line for the first time and kissed Shinjinue. The little girl seemed to be having a beautiful dream, with a smile on her lips. His family had been friends with the Shin family for generations. He was 7 years older than Shinjinue, from childhood to adulthood, although he had tacitly allowed Shinjinue's overstepping. He had always reminded her not to confuse family affection with love, and not to mistake dependence for love. Shinjinue didn't love him, and neither did he. He let Shinjinue consider herself his child bride in waiting. One reason was to drive away those clueless young men, and the other was to reduce the romantic scandals around him. One Shinjinue was already enough to give him a headache, but when he saw similar examples around him that didn't end well, he backed down. A relationship that had changed its nature couldn't go back to the starting point. It was better not to start. After he sobered up, he went on a business trip to Hong Kong City the next day, but he didn't expect to encounter an earthquake. He was saved by a girl of the same age as him after surviving the disaster. The little girl was a dancer. Because of him, she lost her legs and her dreams. Guilt and self-blame haunted him. With his financial resources, it wasn't difficult to support another girl. He had been supporting her for 3 years, except for his assistant. No one knew about this. The reason was simple. He was afraid that Shinjinue would make a fuss and look for trouble with Fan Yueshi. This time, he brought Fan Yueshi back to Jingbei. One reason was to fulfill his promise to marry her, and the other was that he knew Shinjinue was going to confess to him. He wanted Shinjinue to know when to give up. They shouldn't have crossed the line and had no future, but now, Shinjinue had backed down. But he started to regret it. 9. When Li Yuli returned to the villa, Fan Yueshi was sitting in the living room waiting for him. She was dressed thinly. The night in Jingbei was extremely cold. After waiting all night, her hands were already icy cold. Why didn't you go back to your room? Li Yuli asked with a frown. Fan Yueshi pursed her lips and lowered her eyes to look at her phone. I called you many times, but you didn't answer. I was very worried about you, Yueshi. Li Yuli walked to the side of the sofa and sat down. His eyes were looking straight at Fan Yueshi. Without a trace of warmth, she looked up. Jinue was raised by me. She has been with me all these years. Her temper was spoiled by me. When you decided to follow me 3 years ago, I already told you, I owe you a life. You can ask me to pay it back in any way, but you must never touch Jinue. As he spoke, Fan Yueshi's eyes suddenly turned red. She looked at Li Yuli wronged. Yuli, you suspect that I hurt Miss Shin, right? Li Yuli didn't say much. He only left one sentence. For Jinue's safety, there are many surveillance cameras in the villa. Fan Yueshi was stunned on the spot and didn't react for a long time. She thought that Li Yuli had clearly stood by her side that day and believed her. She didn't expect that her petty tricks had long been seen through. After Li Yuli went upstairs, he didn't return to his own room. Instead, he went to Shinjinue's previous room. After Fan Yueshi moved in, everything in Shinjinue's room had changed. Those dolls that Shinjinue had once cherished were all put away, and the beautiful and lovely decorations had all been replaced with simple hanging ornaments. Aunt Chen, Li Yuli called Aunt Chen in. Aunt Chen came over quickly. Seeing Li Yuli sitting at the desk, she asked, Sir, what's wrong? He was about to speak when his eyes accidentally fell on the desk calendar in the gap of the desk. He bent down and picked it up. When he saw that the 28th on the desk calendar was circled with a black marker, he was stunned. Aunt Chen was sharp-eyed and also saw it. Isn't this the day of Sir's birthday? I knew that Miss wouldn't really be angry with Sir. Hearing this, Li Yuli's lips inadvertently curved up. His fingertips rubbed the desk calendar. After being quiet for a while, he put the desk calendar back in place. He said in a slightly cheerful tone, renovate the guest room downstairs according to this layout. Let Yueshi live on the first floor. After this place is tidied up, make it look the same as Jinue's original room. I'll go pick her up in a few days. Aunt Chen smiled and agreed, and Fan Yueshi, who was just at the door of the room, suddenly turned deathly pale. 10. There were 5 days left until the reporting date. My handover work was basically completed, but I didn't expect Fan Yueshi to come to the hospital specifically to find me. In just a few days, she looked even more like a broken beauty. Do you have something to see me about? I asked her after putting away the medical record in my hand. Fan Yueshi was sitting in a wheelchair. The disgust in her eyes was completely exposed without any disguise. She looked at me. Shinjinue, Yuli and I are about to get engaged. Can you stay away from Yuli? Is being a mistress who intervenes in other people's relationships your family's upbringing? My hand that was reaching for the pen paused. I raised my eyelids to look at the woman in front of me, with a cold smile on my lips. Miss Fong, you'd better watch your mouth. Watch my mouth, you should do things cleanly first. Shinjinue, don't think I don't know. Everyone knows that you like Li Yuli. You moved out of the Li family now just to play hard to get. Let me tell you, Li Yuli doesn't like you. He will never like you in this life. He can't like his own little niece. Fang Yueshi became more and more excited as she spoke. I couldn't help but laugh scornfully. In my previous life, Fang Yueshi and I hardly ever spent time alone. I knew she wasn't a good person. She, like me, would stop at nothing for the person she loved. The calculation in her eyes and the tricks she played were things I had long been tired of in my previous life, but at that time, I forgot. Only when one is about to lose something can one desperately try every means to hold on to it. In my previous life, with just a few words of provocation from her, even though I fought with her until I was black and blue, Li Yuli remained unmoved. And in this life, I haven't done anything. But it made Li Yuli willingly change. These days, Li Yuli would send me messages from time to time. He told me that my room was still mine, exactly the same, nothing had changed, just like when I left, and just like before. He regularly ordered afternoon tea for me without fail. You say, does Li Yuli love me? No. I also knew about the surveillance cameras in the villa. With Li Yuli's character, he wouldn't not check, but he checked and had no reaction. It could only mean that he tacitly approved of Fang Yueshi bullying me. The current change was just because he wasn't used to my leaving, nothing more. After a long silence, I said, I can't like him anymore either. Fang Yueshi was suddenly stunned. Her originally excited emotions gradually calmed down. What did you say? I admit that the Li Yuli in the past was very good. Since I was a child, whenever I was wronged, he would stand up for me. He was afraid that I would cry and be unhappy. Besides my parents, he was the best person to me in the world, so it was only natural for me to fall in love with him. But that day, when he saw me crying and still forced me to apologize to you, I no longer liked him. Fang Yueshi seemed a bit dazed, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. Just because of this, I nodded. Just because of this. If the person I like is willing to make me cry and be wronged, then he's not the person worthy of my love. Before Fang Yueshi left that day, she asked me again, no matter what Li Yuli does, you won't like him anymore, right? I replied, yes, even if he died for me, I wouldn't like him anymore. 11. The night before the reporting date, just as I was about to board the plane, Li Yuli sent me a message, I'll come pick you up later. I didn't reply. The other side was still showing typing and there was no follow-up for a long time. Just as I was about to put away my phone, Li Yuli's voice call popped up. His voice was a bit relaxed and cheerful. Jinue, I'll come pick you up later. There might be some traffic. I didn't answer. He was indeed on the way. The honking from the road came over. At this moment, the boarding announcement sounded again. The breathing on the other end of the line clearly stalled. After a 2-second pause, he asked softly, Jinue, are you at the airport? Yeah, why are you at the airport? Are you going on a business trip? Why didn't you tell me? Did you forget that tomorrow is my little uncle? I interrupted Li Yuli in a flat tone. He fell silent. I added, I'm going to follow the path my parents once walked. I don't know when I'll be back. Thank you for taking care of me all these years, little uncle. After being reborn, I thought about taking revenge on Li Yuli, making him feel the pain of having his fingers broken. I also thought about dragging those who hurt me to die together, but my life is so long, why should I be limited to love and hatred? Li Yuli once treated me wholeheartedly, that was true, let's just call it even. So now, I neither love nor hate him. Why is this so sudden? After a long while, he asked me. I didn't answer. Then he said, Jinue, if this is because of Yueshi, I can explain, I can make her leave, but you can't leave. His tone was urgent, and the car horn was also very harsh. Jinue, can you wait for me? Wait for me. I'll be there right away. No, it's too late. I smiled softly and then hung up the phone. After turning off my phone, the haze that had been pressing on my heart finally dissipated. Finally, everything came to an end. 12. Li Yuli looked at the hung-up phone and kept dialing. In the end, he only got the cold mechanical voice. Shin Jinue had turned off her phone. At this moment, he was more sober than ever. Shin Jinhue really didn't want him anymore. When he realized this fact, he lost control and punched the steering wheel. He violently loosened his tie, his heart ached as if he was suffocating, and even gasping for breath couldn't relieve the pain. Just as he was about to call his assistant to check Shin Jinue's flight, Fang Yueshi's call came in again. Her voice was full of sobs, and she was begging him not to make her leave. These days, he had thought through a lot of things. Saving a life didn't necessarily mean having to marry the person. He could give Fang Yueshi enough money to ensure that she had a care-free life. He could give her whatever she wanted, except his heart. He had never realized how much space Shin Jinhue occupied in his heart. It was only until now, when Shin Jinhue left, that he understood that his whole heart was almost filled with her. The girl who would cry, laugh, and make a fuss in front of him. He always reminded Shin Jinhue in an elder's tone not to confuse love, but he himself had been in love for more than a decade without even realizing it. At this moment, he couldn't wait to find Shin Jinhue. He wanted to tell her that he loved her, very much. He was wrong before, and he wouldn't be like that anymore. Never again. 13. After finding out Shin Jinue's flight, Li Yuli immediately booked a ticket. Just as he was about to drive to the airport, he collided with a truck. He had a car accident and fell into a coma for a full week. When he woke up, only Fang Yueshi was by his side. When Fang Yueshi met his gaze, she was uncharacteristically flustered. Li Yuli's eyes suddenly turned as cold as a deep pool. Intimidating, she trembled and said, "Yuli, do you feel unwell anywhere?" Li Yuli didn't speak. He took his phone, unlocked it, and when he saw that the person at the top of his contacts had been out of touch since a week ago, a mocking smile curved his lips. His eyes became inexplicably empty. When he was in a coma, he had a very long dream. He dreamed that after Shin Jinhue confessed to him, he brought Fang Yueshi home and told her that this was her little aunt. He dreamed that Shin Jinhue quarreled with him again and again, saying that she loved him, and fought wits with Fang Yueshi. Then he saw Shin Jinhue being dragged away from the bar, crying in a sorry state and asking him for help. Her fingers were broken one by one in front of his eyes. And he, because he had promised Fang Yueshi that he would never interfere in Shin Jinue's affairs again, watched coldly. Clearly, his heart ached so much that he was almost suffocating, but he still pretended not to care. In the dream, Shin Jinue's hands were disabled, and she could no longer hold a scalpel. He watched as Shin Jinhue sat in the hospital ward every day, staring blankly at the sky outside and inexplicably shedding tears. He saw herself harming again and again, with the scars on her wrists getting deeper and deeper. Clearly, Shin Jinhue had once said, "I want to be the best doctor in the future." At that time, he had promised Shin Jinhue that he would always protect her and her golden hands, but in the end, he became the chief culprit. He was afraid to see Shin Jinhue. He was afraid that Shin Jinhue would look at him with those cold eyes, and he was afraid that he would no longer see a trace of love in Shin Jinue's eyes. He regretted it after Shin Jinue's first suicide attempt, but he also knew that they could never go back. Shin Jinhue died at the age of 25, and he finally didn't marry Fang Yueshi. Even when Fang Yueshi threatened him with her life, he remained unmoved. He insisted on marrying Shin Jinhue, even though everyone was scolding him. How shameless, you forced your little niece to death and still want to marry her. He didn't hesitate. Their wedding was grand, but there were no guests. He held Shin Jinue's ashes and completed the wedding. Finally, he also committed suicide at the wedding. 14. 3 months later, I was stunned when Li Yuli found me. I had just come out of the ward and looked up to see him. He had lost a lot of weight. The suit that used to fit him well now couldn't even hold up on his skinny body. His face was deathly pale as he forced a smile. I slightly frowned and kept my distance from him. "Have you been doing well recently?" He greeted me awkwardly. I nodded. I had heard more or less about Li Yuli's affairs. The day I went abroad, he had a car accident. After waking up from the accident, he wanted to send Fang Yueshi back to Hong Kong City and broke off the engagement with her. Fang Yueshi disagreed and made a big scene with him. Li Yuli still didn't back down. Fang Yueshi was so angry that she stole the Li family's business secrets and sold them to 2 or 3 of his competitors. Overnight, he was attacked from both sides. The Li family's stock was in turmoil, the capital chain was broken, and the projects were suspended. It took him 3 months of non-stop work to barely stabilize the situation. Fang Yueshi was sued by him and sentenced to 5 years. "When are you planning to go back to Jingbei?" he asked again, his tone cautious. I smiled and said, "I'm not going back." He was taken aback. "Why, you're home, little uncle. You forget that I no longer have a home in Jingbei, after my parents died. The only relative I had was Li Yuli, but later, Li Yuli didn't want me either, so, whether in the previous life or this life, I have no home. Li Yuli wanted to say something else, but I didn't listen anymore. I followed the stretcher that had just come in and rushed into the operating room. 5 hours had passed when I came out. I thought he should have left long ago. Unexpectedly, Li Yuli was still standing there, stubbornly waiting for me. His eyes were filled with complex emotions that were hard to understand. I didn't understand, nor did I know what he wanted to do, until he followed me to the downstairs of the dormitory and asked me, "Did it hurt a lot when your fingers were broken?" Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks, and my 5 fingers subconsciously tightened. He looked at my back, and his voice was faintly nasal. I just said, "Why did my Jinhua suddenly stop liking me? I'm sorry, Jinhua, I was wrong. I thought I didn't love you." But halfway through his words, he choked up, he covered his eyes, and tears overflowed from between his fingers. His shoulders kept shaking, as if in extreme pain. I was just too scared. I was afraid that if we started, we wouldn't have a good ending. I was afraid that in the end, we wouldn't have any relationship at all. I thought Fang Yueshi's appearance would only break your thoughts about me. I didn't expect that it would turn out like this in the end. I'm sorry. You've suffered so much and been brave for so many years." The more he spoke, the more painful he became. He slowly approached me carefully. When he tried to hold my hand, I avoided it and then turned around to look at Li Yuli. "There's no need to dwell on it. Is there? I have a new life, and Li Yuli will have one in the future. It's just that we won't have any intersection anymore. Little uncle, people always have to move forward." After saying that, the last glimmer of light in Li Yuli's eyes was completely extinguished. "Jinhua," he forced a bitter smile. "I'm sorry, goodbye, little uncle." 15. After Jinhua said the last word, she turned around and left without hesitation. Li Yuli habitually took out the cigarette case from his pocket. His hands were shaking as he took out a cigarette and tried to light it, but the lighter just wouldn't work. The wind on the border was so strong, the sand blew into his eyes, and it hurt so much that he couldn't stop the tears from flowing. If he could have been brave once, if he could have been reckless for Jinhua once without considering the consequences, would there not be such an ending? At least he would have had something. If they couldn't reach the end, it would be that they had no fate, but he wasn't even willing to pay the cost of trial and error. After Jinhua returned to the dormitory, she walked to the balcony. Coincidentally, he looked up. She seemed to feel his gaze. She lowered her head, and when their eyes met, she smiled calmly, took in all the clothes, and then closed the balcony door again. Her movements were smooth, without a trace of reluctance. At this moment, he really realized that he had been completely blacklisted by Jinhua. She wouldn't be attracted to him anymore. Thinking of this, he vomited a large pool of blood and fainted downstairs of her dormitory. 16. That day, I was wearing a dress he had custom made for me at great expense, and I had booked the most luxurious hotel in Jingbei. The next time I heard news about Li Yuli was 3 years later. He had lung cancer, at an advanced stage, on his deathbed. He hoped that I could go and see him one last time. I looked at my fully scheduled surgeries and regretfully refused. A friend said, "Before he died, Li Yuli notarized all his property and put it under your name. He was really infatuated with you. Why did you two end up like this?" I just smiled. At that time, I also wanted to ask why we ended up like this. Now when I think about it, none of it matters anymore. People have their own fates when they're alive, and the same when they're dead. Story 2. My best friend urged me to confess to my childhood friend at the class reunion, but in reality, the two of them were already together. She just wanted to embarrass me in public. As a result, I ended up confessing to the school bully who had secretly loved me in our past life but never expressed it. School bully. Surprise, the school beauty has been reborn. 1. While waiting for the elevator at the KTV with Shintang, there were boys constantly looking our way. Isn't that the school beauty? When Xiao, she looks even prettier in person. She must be a goddess, right? I dream of having a girlfriend like her. I really want to ask for her contact info, but she's too beautiful. I don't dare. Shintang stood next to me with a poker face, but the fist hidden in his sleeve was clenched tightly. Suddenly, I realized that she must have been dissatisfied with me for a long time. It wasn't until she saw a familiar figure that Shintang excitedly called out, "Gu Xian, over here." "Here I come, Tang Tang." Gu Xian hastened his steps with a smile. As he approached, I discreetly stepped back 2 paces without making a sound. I didn't even glance at him. Gu Xian paused slightly. Normally, without him saying anything, I would have gone up to him. Despite his obvious impatience with me, Gu Xian, Qiao Qiao has something to say to you tonight. Right, Qiao Qiao. Shen Tang nudged me with her elbow, signaling me to speak, but I pushed her hand away instead. I know Gu Xian. I turned my head to look the other way. 3 boys were walking over. Sun Ge also came tonight. Sun Ge, your new sports car is really cool. When can I drive it? Our Sun Ge just woke up and doesn't want to talk. He didn't plan to come, but he must have received some news. Hee. My gaze then fell on the boy called Sun Ge. He looked like he had just woken up, his black hair messy over his forehead, one hand casually pocketed, the other idly twirling a car key. Only when our eyes met did his body stiffen momentarily, his eyes slowly lifting, but he quickly avoided my gaze. Zhu Xuanran, good evening, I initiated. The people around us were somewhat surprised. School bully Zhu Xuanran and school beauty Wen Qiao seemed to have never interacted before. Could it be they knew each other? Zhu Xuanran also paused, his voice hoarse as he slowly said, yeah, good evening. The 2 boys beside him exchanged meaningful looks, tilting their heads to the side and snickering secretly. Wen Qiao, Gu Xian looked at me with that impatient demeanor, as if it were his right. When did you get to know Zhu Xuanran? As if to lecture me as before, but this time, I wouldn't comply. I rolled my eyes. What's it to you? Gu Xian pursed his lips as he looked at me, his eyes deep. Qiao Qiao, how can you talk like that? Shen Tang was the first to come out in defense of Gu Xian. Gu Xian is looking out for you. He doesn't want you to associate with that kind of person. Why are you so aggressive? What kind of person? I stared at her. Someone who acts one way to your face but another behind your back, or someone full of lies and deceit. Don't get me wrong, I'm talking about you. Gu Xian and I were childhood friends, and after becoming best friends with Shen Tang, I naturally introduced him to her, despite knowing my feelings for Gu Xian. She flirted with him behind my back while persuading me to pursue him. Even though I felt Gu Xian's inexplicably cold and annoyed attitude towards me, I never imagined it would be the doing of my so-called best friend. Shen Tang didn't expect me to defend Zhu Xuanran. She hurriedly tried to pull me aside to remind me not to forget to confess to Gu Xian, but I swiftly withdrew my arm from her grasp. Shen Tang, caught off guard by her own excessive force, nearly fell. But Gu Xian quickly caught her with concern. This time, his gaze was so intense, it was as if he wanted to tear me apart. Wen Qiao, what are you doing? Apologize to Tang Tang, he demanded, his voice harsh and loud enough to draw the attention of those around us. He glared at me fiercely, advancing step by step. I found myself retreating under his pressure, but in the next second, I backed into a firm chest, a pleasant scent of sandalwood enveloping me. Instinctively, I turned, my forehead bumping against the nose of a young man. He steadied me by the arms, directing me to face Gu Xian, his palms broad and warm. Zhu Xuanran spoke indifferently, pausing between each word. Such a fierce voice, just like my dog at home. He was standing up for me, too. I remember in my previous life at this time, I was reduced to tears by Gu Xian, secretly turning away to wipe them. Zhu Xuanran was idly chatting with his buddies not far away, yet his eyes remained fixed on me. His brows were furrowed tightly, his hand pressed against the wall, veins bulging. That night ended with me being humiliated and rejected by Gu Xian, crying as I ran back to the dorm. The next day, I heard from classmates that Gu Xian had been severely beaten the night before and was hospitalized. It seems it was this young master who had acted. Brother Sun, don't say that. Your Tibetan Mastiff looks much more spirited than this guy. I can attest to that, and it's worth much more too, said Zhu Xuanran's follower, swaying over and quickly drawing the attention of everyone around. The elevator doors were open, but no one dared to enter. What, looking for a fight? Gu Xian asked coldly. No, Zhu Xuanran corrected. A fight implies both sides are equal, but I can crush you single-handedly. I believed Zhu Xuanran was not exaggerating. With that in mind, I politely stepped aside. Mr. Zhu, after you. Gu Xian, come on, we're all classmates here. It's all a misunderstanding. Shen Tang, frightened, quickly pushed Gu Xian toward the stairwell. She didn't forget to signal to me. Qiao Qiao, don't be temperamental. Remember why we came here tonight. I really wanted to slap her. In my previous life, influenced by Shen Tang, I confessed to Gu Xian and was publicly rejected. He then took Shen Tang's hand and announced their relationship, branding me as the other woman. Overnight, I went from the envied school beauty to a laughingstock and object of ridicule. Later, I developed depression and dropped out of school. During my illness, I often received anonymous encouraging letters. The handwriting was neat, with just a few simple words: "Keep going, someone is always here." Each letter came with a blue bellflower. Only after my accidental death did I discover that all those letters and flowers were from Zhu Xuanran. The boy who used to blush every time he saw me, whom I had never noticed before. Thinking of the past life, emotions welled up, causing my shoulders to tremble slightly. Zhu Xuanran seemed to sense my distress, hesitantly calling out my name. "Wen Xiao." His tone sounded ordinary, but I detected an unprecedented tenderness. I snapped back to reality. "The elevator is here." I nodded and immediately walked towards the elevator. "Be careful." I didn't notice the elevator doors were closing when Zhu Xuanran swiftly moved forward and held the door open for me. While someone exclaimed dramatically nearby, I bumped into the young man's arms, and in that moment, I could hear my heartbeat racing. His hand was still pressed against the door frame. He was facing slightly away from me, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, his nose prominent, and his lips a bright red. I couldn't help but marvel at how someone could remain so fair and have such tender skin despite playing soccer and fighting in all weathers on the playground. Lost in these thoughts, I arrived at the top-floor lobby. The classmates who had arrived early had the music blaring, but when they saw Zhu Xuanran's stern face, they quietly turned down the volume. Actually, I don't think Zhu Xuanran was in a bad mood. It's just that he looks quite intimidating even when expressionless. "Jojo, come over here." Shen Tang beckoned me to sit with them. Gu Xian was also staring straight at me. In the past, whenever he looked at me, I would definitely go over to him, but times have changed. Now, I sit wherever Zhu Xuanran and his guys sit. The two guys seemed quite flattered. What day is it today that the school beauty would sit with us? The guys over there must be green with envy. Zhu Xuanran's mouth twitched, and he held back a smile as he slapped one of the boys on the head. "Watch your language. The lady is here." Suddenly, I found this bad student known throughout the school quite endearing. We sat there in groups, and throughout, Shen Tang kept giving me meaningful looks which I pretended not to notice. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Jojo, didn't you say you had something to tell Gu Xian tonight?" She raised her voice an octave, drawing the attention of the other students. "Jojo, don't leave with regrets. Speak out everything you've been holding back for years about Gu Xian tonight. I want to know too." The amount of information in her words was quite substantial, sparking gossip among the classmates. I nodded with a smile. "Yes, I do have something I want to say in front of everyone tonight." I didn't miss the extremely excited yet envious look in Shen Tang's eyes. "Jojo, go ahead." She could hardly contain herself, her voice trembling with excitement. Gu Xian looked at me coldly, his face full of annoyance. In the silent atmosphere, I stood up, walked in front of Zhu Xuanran, and spoke loudly. "Zhu Xuanran, I've liked you for a long time. Will you be my boyfriend?" The room erupted in amazement. It was as if a depth charge had been dropped, and the place immediately boiled over. Damn, Zhu Xuanran's guy was so shocked he bumped into him. The boy seemed petrified. A flush quickly climbed up his pale face from his ears. He looked at me, his Adam's apple bobbing, and a glint flickered in his dark eyes. "Are you serious?" he asked in a hoarse voice. Of course, I smiled broadly. "What?" Shen Tang screamed, no longer bothering to pretend as she rushed up to me. "Jojo, how can you confess to Zhu Xuanran? Weren't you going to confess to Gu Xian?" Gu Xian. Seeing Zhu Xuanran's gaze dim, I turned around, and saw Gu Xian had also stood up from the couch, his face terribly dark. I chuckled lightly. Why would I confess to him? He's not my type at all. Gu Xian. I had never seen such a look in his eyes before. Astonishment, shock, pain, disbelief, all sorts of complex emotions flashed by as he walked over. "What are you doing, Gu Xian?" Shen Tang almost instinctively grabbed his hand. I laughed and said, "Shen Tang, I should really thank you for persistently encouraging me to like him. But isn't he your boyfriend, right, Gu Xian?" I looked at Gu Xian, who responded in his usual nonchalant manner. "No." Shen Tang, shocked and anxious, tried to defend herself, but by then, everyone had already made their own judgments, especially the girls, who instantly understood the situation tonight. Our class representative, always straightforward, spoke up directly. "It's disgusting how you manipulate your best friend every day. Such people only pretend to be innocent in front of guys." Shen Tang's face flushed red instantly. However, to my surprise, Gu Xian seemed unaffected by it. I suddenly realized he wasn't clueless. He had always silently condoned Shintang's bullying and slander towards me. Gu Xian spoke calmly. Wen Qiao, are you joking about yourself just to upset me? His confidence overwhelmed me. I stared at him and said, Gu Xian, you've been trampling over our friendship, expecting me to heal my wounds and come back to you. Where do you get the confidence to keep hurting me? Do you really think I can't live without you? He fell silent. Zhu Xuanran, as if thawed from stone, stepped in front of me. His earlobes were as red as ripe cherries. Whether she's joking or not, she has nothing to do with you now. But I was serious, I said innocently, blinking. The next second, I pulled Zhu Xuanran by the shoulders to face me and kissed him. Zhu Xuanran's eyes widened, the classmates froze, then erupted into cheers. Can I really watch this for free? Help, this perfect match. My goddess, it turns out the only one who matches the school beauty in looks is Zhu Xuanran. While I kissed him, his breathing stopped. A faint scar at the corner of his eye was now hidden in the shadow of his long lashes. Zhu Xuanran looked at me in shock, his long lashes not even blinking. This only piqued my interest further. He had no idea how attractive his eyes were. It was like teasing an innocent young man. I gently caressed his lips and whispered, Zhu Xuanran, why do you blush so easily? Don't you know how to kiss your girlfriend? His face turned even redder. The young man reached out, grasped the back of my head, and deepened the kiss. This was my first kiss in 2 lifetimes, and I never expected to be so forward. It was impulsive. Seeing him, I just wanted to kiss him. Is this what it feels like to actually start a romance? It seems quite sweet. I slowly closed my eyes. That night, I was in a daze until Zhu Xuanran walked me back to my dorm. As for Gu Xian and Shintang, I completely ignored them and blocked them both upon my return. A friendship that's too crowded doesn't need deliberate pushing from anyone. I'd rather walk away myself. 5. Just after I got back to the dorm, Shintang knocked on my door, insisting that I had misunderstood and wanting to explain. She said she had no special feelings for Gu Xian. Her tone intensified as she asked, Qiao Qiao, do you really not like Gu Xian anymore? Didn't you say you liked how handsome and mature he is? Aren't you childhood sweethearts? I understood that Shintang couldn't accept that the only thing she thought she had over me was already discarded by me. Her feelings for Gu Xian might not be love, but rather a desire to compete with me. Qiao Qiao, can you come out and talk? Shintang persisted outside, knocking until my roommate sent her away. My gaze stayed fixed on my phone screen, my lips curving into a smile. Zhu Xuanran had just added me on his contact list tonight, asking groggily, are we really together? I'm very innocent, don't lie to me. I burst out laughing. I found a couple of profile pictures and sent them to him. Zhu Xuanran skillfully made the change. He said, I'm still a bit excited. I said with a smile, don't be too excited, we'll go to class together tomorrow. Good night, my boyfriend. Okay, good night, my girlfriend. It was only later that I heard from his roommate that he was more than just a bit excited. That night, he nearly tore his dorm apart, running into the hallway and shouting Wen Qiao is my girlfriend. Until the early hours of the morning, no one dared to stop him. He only stopped when he lost his voice. Then he took a cold shower and, still unable to contain his excitement, went to the track to run laps. 6. That night, I put down my phone and lay in bed, struggling to fall asleep for a long time. During the period I took a break from school in my previous life, I mostly spent my time taking medication and seeing doctors. I was no longer the envy of others. In the past, I was an excellent student and talented in singing and dancing, recognized as the versatile school beauty and a role model for underclassmen. After I fell from grace, it seemed like everyone had forgotten me, except for him. Zhu Xuanran would never abandon Wen Qiao. Because of him, slowly, no one dared to talk about me behind my back. Even at the new school beauty contest, Zhu Xuanran officially voted by writing my name on the day of the school vote. I was sitting by the window at home, contemplating for the umpteenth time whether to jump. My mother, trembling, ran into my room with her phone and said, Daughter, look, your classmates haven't forgotten you. This male student is holding your name. In the live video, at the vast voting scene, Zhu Xuanran wore a black suit he seldom wore, looking solemn and out of place, walking alone to the front under everyone's gaze. He seemed to disregard everyone present, always indifferent to anything. He solemnly placed the sign with Wen Qiao written on it onto the table. That lone, singular vote shone brighter than any other name. In that moment, the sun splashed around, and the young man looked at the sign in his hand, his lips curling up. Forgive my bluntness, but this school beauty contest is unnecessary. The gap is too wide. The host, caught off guard by this turn of events, hesitated and asked, Zhu, are you sure? Absolutely sure. The young man slightly looked up at the camera. Smiling confidently, when Zhu Xuanran sets his sights on someone, he will choose her over and over again, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, until I die. I stared blankly at the screen, suddenly remembering the person who anonymously wrote letters to encourage me. On one of the letters, there was a drawing of a girl holding a comically looking little dog wearing black clothes and sporting a scar below its eye. On the back, it read, "The little dog will never abandon you. Forever fervent and loyal." Remembering the comical appearance of the little dog in the drawing, I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed to be the first time I had laughed since falling ill. My mother, shocked and excited, watched as I finally showed the emotions a normal person should have. She stood there, unsure what to do, and after a while, she came over crying and hugged me. Now that I have been reborn, I will never let down anyone who likes me, nor will I let anyone easily destroy me. 7. The next morning, Zhu Xuanran and I walked hand in hand across the campus, attracting glances from passers-by. Zhu Xuanran's usually stubborn and rebellious bangs hung down naturally today, complementing his dark, large eyes, giving him a strangely well-behaved look. Suddenly, I really wanted to kiss him. Just then, we passed a child eating a candied haw, his large eyes exceptionally bright and adorable. I was instantly captivated. I shyly pointed at him and said to Zhu Xuanran, "Look. I want one like that too. I want to have a child like that with you." I didn't have the courage to say the rest. I figured a combination of genes with Zhu Xuanran couldn't be too bad. Right, ideally, having both a son and a daughter, with the son taking after him and the daughter after me. Zhu Xuanran nodded in sudden realization. I get it now. I promise, whatever others have, you'll have too. He looked around, then let go of my hand and ran off to the side. Where are you going? I was stunned. The young man didn't look back and quickened his pace. Wait for me. I'll bring you some candied hawthorn sticks right back. Zhu Xuanran, can you be any more straightforward? I simply sat down on a bench by the roadside and played with my phone while waiting for him. I was engrossed in a game when I heard footsteps that were neither light nor heavy stop in front of me. Is that you, Zhu Sun? The smile on my face vanished in an instant, and Gu Xian, rarely seen smiling, was holding a steaming, fragrant bag of xiaolongbao. You haven't had dinner yet, right? Here, your favorite nanqiang xiaolong. He handed me the bag, but with a gesture, I knocked the bag out of his hand. Gu Xian, do you know, I've died once before, both physically and spiritually. What I can't allow myself to do is make the same mistake again. Sorry, my boyfriend will be taking me out to dinner in a bit. I paused, then thinking about not littering, bent down to pick up the bag and neatly threw it into the trash can. Gu Xian watched all this with a smile from beginning to end. Qiao Qiao, you've always been such a proud girl, I retorted unapologetically, and you've always been sick. After speaking, I was about to leave, but Gu Xian suddenly raised his voice. Have you seen Zhu Xuanran get into fights with people after drinking with his friends? Have you seen him in a bar, gambling and drinking with others? Do you know that there are many girls around Zhu Xuanran, and he might just be playing with you? I turned my head and looked at him expressionlessly. Gu Xian's tone became steadier as he said, "You've never been in touch with Zhu Xuanran before, Wen Qiao. Do you really like him, someone as unreliable as him, worthy of you?" His following words were choked back. I withdrew my hand, and Gu Xian incredulously touched his cheek that had just been struck by me. You hit me for him? Yes. I stared at him fiercely and smiled. You insult my boyfriend, and I wonder why I didn't finish you off. Surprise and estrangement filled Gu Xian's eyes. Indeed, I used to be extremely meek. I wouldn't physically fight with anyone, nor even speak harshly. Whenever I cried because of Gu Xian, he would disdainfully say that I was just a greenhouse flower pampered by my family, easily brought to tears over trivial matters, and that I should stick with boys who would pamper and adore me, as he wouldn't. But my tears were more out of sadness, sad because he never stood by my side. Gu Xian, a scream came, and Shen Tang, who had been hiding somewhere until now, suddenly rushed out, anxiously cradling Gu Xian's face to check. Does it hurt? Are you badly injured? Wen Qiao, you went too far. How could you treat Gu Xian like this? She prattled on, but Gu Xian was looking straight at me, suddenly interrupting her. Wen Qiao, you've changed. Thanks for noticing. I pulled out a tissue from my pocket, vigorously wiped my hands clean, and threw it into the trash can. Gu Xian, let's go. Shen Tang's expression darkened a bit. She pulled on Gu Xian's arm, and forcefully led him away. Gu Xian followed her but still turned his head towards me. He took a few steps and then stopped, his eyes still full of complex emotions. Facing their gaze, I turned away expressionlessly. Beneath the camphor tree up ahead stood a slender figure, a young man holding a skewer of candied hawthorn fruit in his hand. He curved his eyes in a smile at me in the soft light of dawn. My eyes suddenly lit up. "Zhu Xuanran," I called out, smiling as I ran towards him. He opened his arms to catch me. I hugged him tightly around his lean waist, secretly thinking how nice it felt to hold him. His arms were long enough to envelop me completely. "Ciao ciao." Zhu Xuanran's voice fell gently and softly on my head. "You really don't have to stand up for me. I never care about what those people say, I know, but I just won't let anyone speak ill of my boyfriend," I whispered, tightening my embrace, just as countless times before, when I watched Gu Xian and Shen Tang walking away together. This time, I boldly took Zhu Xuanran's hand in front of them, clinging to his arm like a human charm, letting him feed me the candied hawthorn as we walked toward the cafeteria. It's just showing off a bit when you've found someone you like. It comes naturally. During lunch, I overheard a girl at the next table commenting, "Who would have thought Zhu Xuanran could smile? And he looks quite good when he does." Her friend immediately nudged her. "Hey, he's already taken. He and Xiao Xiao, the school beauty, really make a great pair." That morning, since there were no classes in Zhu Xuanran's computer science department, he followed me to mine. It was a small class, not many people, and everyone perked up a bit with Zhu Xuanran's arrival. But what caused even more of a stir was the appearance of another school tough girl, Ding Luoyan, who used to hang out with Zhu Xuanran frequently. She had taken a break from school recently, and everyone thought she wouldn't be appearing at school anytime soon. Ding Luoyan had dyed her hair black and for the first time let down her usually tied-up high ponytail, accentuating her already sharp chin. She was dressed in a chic white outfit today, the top open to reveal a sexy bandeau inside, causing the nearby boys to blush and unable to look directly at her. Suddenly I remembered, Ding Luoyan had also been voted the beauty of the computer science department, but later she preferred to dress like a tomboy and hung out with Zhu Xuanran and the others. Seeing me and Zhu Xuanran walk in, Ding Luoyan bluntly said, "Wow, brother's son is also attending classes." Zhu Xuanran didn't even glance at her and pulled me by the hand to sit in the back. Ding Luoyan laughed, turning her head with a cheeky smile. "Isn't that a bit much? Just because I confessed and you rejected me, does it mean you have to avoid me like this? We could still be friends, just like before, and I could continue to be your sidekick, right?" Zhu Xuanran snorted coldly through his nose. Silently pulling out a tissue to wipe the desk, Ding Luoyan kept talking. This time her gaze shifted to me. "Brother son, I just realized you like this type, but how am I any different now? Why can't you look at me even once?" Finally, Zhu Xuanran couldn't hold back any longer. He gritted his teeth and threatened, "Ding Luoyan, I don't want to be harsh to girls, but you better behave yourself, alright?" Ding Luoyan giggled and then turned to flip through a comic book on the table. Love and indifference are indeed very clear. If I'm not mistaken, the comic book Ding Luoyan was looking at was of Zhu Xuanran's favorite style. Meanwhile, Zhu Xuanran was frowning at my calculus textbook, putting on a serious face as if pondering the problems. "Do you know how to solve this problem?" I teasingly leaned over to him. Zhu Xuanran glanced at me, his cheeks immediately turning red. He nodded and then shook his head. "Then I'll explain it to you." I winked at him, and his blush deepened. "He's really cute." I barely held back my laughter as I took a pen to demonstrate the problem for him. When I finished explaining and looked up, I found him hurriedly averting his eyes. "Zhu Xuanran," I said, pretending to be stern, "were you looking at your textbook just now, or were you looking at me?" He glanced at me and then cast his eyes down like a guilty puppy. "Looking at you, Zhu Xuanran. If you keep staring at me like that, the teacher is going to scold you." He blinked nonchalantly and said, "I'd still choose to look at you." That image flashed through my mind again, a girl walking ahead, leading a puppy, which gazed continuously at her back. "Zhu Xuanran, this time I won't let you down again." As the class ended, Zhu Xuanran was called out by a boy who said he needed to talk. As soon as he left, Ding Luoyan came over and sat beside me. Without saying a word, she propped her head up and scrutinized me. I closed my textbook without changing my expression. "You've been watching me during class, haven't you had enough?" The girl grinned and said, "Wen Xiao, he seems to really like you, although everyone says you're the school beauty. I'm still surprised he chose you. It's not that you're not good enough, but in my eyes, Zhu Xuanran is the best." I looked into her eyes. They were beautiful phoenix eyes, devoid of jealousy or resentment, but filled with genuine admiration. It was like a telepathic connection between girls. I could feel she bore no malice towards me. I nodded. I understand how you feel, and I'll take good care of him. Ding Luoyan picked up a strand of my hair and chuckled. Did you know, when I first met him, I had the same hairstyle as you, and I liked wearing my hair down too. The first time I met Xuanran, I was cornered by a group of thugs, and no one passing by stopped to help me, except for him. He came charging on his motorcycle and stood in front of me. Speaking of Zhu Xuanran, a spark of light appeared in Ding Luoyan's eyes, and her smile grew wider. I still remember his stern profile under the night sky. Arrogant and rebellious, his eyes were wild yet incredibly clear. Fatally attractive to anyone, he looked at those thugs and calmly told me to get on his bike. That was the first time I rode his motorcycle. Later, I decided to follow him everywhere, so I tied up my hair and stuck by him like a brother. At first, he didn't want me to follow him, but after I desperately fought alongside him a few times, making some enemies, he had no choice but to let me. Ding Luoyan's smile turned bittersweet. I thought as long as I could stay by his side, I would have a chance, but I was wrong. Wen Qiao, you are the first person I have ever lost to. Your presence has utterly defeated me. I looked at Ding Luoyan sympathetically, placing my hand on her shoulder, about to offer some comfort, when Shen Tang suddenly burst in. She must have heard many rumors around the school by now, and she looked visibly distressed. Qiao Qiao, I was indeed with Gu Xian before. It was wrong of me not to tell you, but it was all his idea. I agreed out of helplessness. Ding Luoyan raised her eyebrows with a peculiar expression. Shen Tang continued, but now I've broken up with him. Qiao Qiao, you will always be my best friend. To hell with men. She forcefully grabbed my hand, her eyes brimming with tears. Can we go back to how things used to be? Can we be inseparable best friends again? So, what do you want? I said with a smile. Shen Tang thought I was as naive as before, her voice trembling with a sob. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You're the best. Did that Zhu Xuanran bully you? If he dares to make you angry, I'll stand up for you. Stop, stop, stop. Ding Luoyan, sitting with one leg over the other, said, why can't I bear to listen to this anymore? Big sister, they are a couple in a good relationship. Why would you meddle in their affairs? Who do you think you are? Ding Luoyan didn't know Shen Tang. But Shen Tang had heard of Ding Luoyan's reputation and didn't dare provoke this well-known tough woman. Instinctively, she stepped back and whispered, I was just speaking on behalf of Qiao Qiao. From her perspective, if you don't like it, that's fine. But she didn't say anything. I slowly started to speak. Luoyan is right. Shen Tang, who do you think you are? I said each word clearly, if I remember correctly, when I was still on good terms with Gu Xian. You were the one who insisted every day that you wouldn't let me be bullied and wanted to confront him on my behalf, but as things turned out, you two ended up together, and I became an outsider. Now, are you trying to do the same thing with Zhu Xuanran? Ding Luoyan suddenly realized and concluded, isn't this just the legendary behavior of a green TB*TCH, stealing your best friend's man? Looks like the big sister here has figured it out. Shen Tang had faced numerous setbacks from last night until today, and now even Ding Luoyan, a stranger, could pinpoint her true nature. She stomped her foot in frustration and ran out of the classroom. I turned back and exchanged a look with Ding Luoyan, and surprisingly, we both burst out laughing at the same time. Maybe we can be friends, I said. Ding Luoyan smirked. Forget it, after all, you're my rival in love. I don't want to see either of you again. Today was my last attempt for myself. Alright, I lost, I accept it. When Zhu Xuanran returned that day, Ding Luoyan had already left the classroom. The comic books she had been flipping through all morning were now quietly lying in the trash can. The page was turned to the first one, with the clumsy but clear handwriting. Zhu Xuanran, can you please like Ding Luoyan, 13. From then on, every day felt like I was soaking in a jar of honey. Zhu Xuanran pampered me to the skies, listened to everything I said, and like bewitched, brought me lots of gifts every day, as if wanting to give me everything he considered good. His previously arrogant and domineering demeanor seemed to vanish overnight. Not only did his hairstyle and clothes look like a good student, but he also started smiling more, proudly showing off to his brothers that he had a girlfriend, and he became much more talkative. Those who knew him before could hardly recognize him now, but later, I realized that he hadn't changed his impulsive and adventurous nature. He had just toned down his sharp edges for me. Zhu Xuanran even once gave me the keys to his beloved sports car, which I adamantly refused. Because I had already received the best gift he could give me, that was the letters he wrote to me when I was most lonely and helpless, and those beautiful yet lonely blue balloon flowers. In stark contrast were Gu Xian and Shen Tang. Shen Tang had a bad reputation, almost enjoying the treatment I had endured in her previous life, and Gu Xian had become significantly more silent, exuding a repressed aura. Many times, when Zhu Xuanran and I went out hand in hand, we would just happen to run into him perfectly placed. Although we didn't greet each other, as we passed by, I could always strongly feel a very intense gaze on me. 14. Time swiftly moved to Christmas Eve, and in my past life, I died on that day. 15. This year's Christmas Eve came with a thick blanket of snow, the moonlight bright, and the ground pure white. My lips were chapped for some reason, and I was so upset that I ignored him for half the day, only agreeing to go out with him in the evening. Zhu Xuanran, learning from TikTok, prepared a big Christmas gift box for me, which contained apples and bright red banknotes. I was amazed at his generosity, yet helpless at his straightforward way of expressing his love. The pedestrian street was bustling, with many couples. The girls' faces were all rosy, their hands tucked into the pockets of the boys holding them. Only the straightforward Zhu Xuanran, with his zipper undone as if he wasn't cold, he took my hand and slipped it into his embrace. "Aren't you cold?" I asked him. Zhu Xuanran chuckled foolishly and said, "Not cold at all, I actually feel quite warm, lately." I had almost forgotten that my boyfriend was once the formidable school tyrant. These days, he always looked blissfully silly, feeding stray cats and dogs, and becoming patient with everything. As we strolled along the street, a commotion suddenly erupted from the crowd. For some reason, the moment I heard the noise, my heart skipped a beat, a bone-deep fear enveloped me, and I shook my head vigorously to clear it. It turned out to be a drunk man who had fallen onto a girl. The girl's boyfriend was furious and wanted to confront him, but the drunk man's friend quickly intervened. The girl loudly claimed it was a misunderstanding and hurriedly pulled her boyfriend away. "Damn idiots." The drunken man stood up, brushed off his hands, and spoke clearly despite his intoxication. Forget it, there are plenty of girls like her around. Come on, let's go to that bar I told you about and drive there." Zhu Xuanran stopped in his tracks and looked over. Darkness filled his eyes, and fine red veins slowly crept across his eyeballs. Chow, wait here. I'm going to buy you some chocolate milk tea," he instructed me earnestly. "There's a police station nearby, just sit here and wait for me, don't go anywhere." "Okay, I'll be back soon." I felt something was off but agreed nonetheless. After Zhu Xuanran left, I saw the person I disliked the most. Gu Xian, who usually wore white or light blue shirts, was dressed in black tonight. He stood a few steps away, silently watching me, but I had promised Zhu Xuanran to wait there for him, so I wouldn't leave easily. I shifted my position, sitting with my legs boldly crossed. According to Gu Xian, I could never like a girl who is both unruly and sharp. How ridiculous. Once, because Gu Xian liked light blue shirts, I bought many blue skirts. Ding Luoyan liked Zhu Xuanran whether his hair was tied up or let down. Zhu Xuanran had transformed himself into a well-behaved student for me. Now, Gu Xian wore black, a color he once hated. All for me. Everyone changes for the one they like. But little do they know, love itself is an existence that breaks all norms. There will always be someone whose arrival shatters all your expectations and predictions. They may not be perfect, but the moment they appear, a voice in your heart will say, "It's them." Chow. Can't we go back to how things were before? Gu Xian suddenly spoke. Before Shen Tang was in the picture, I remember in junior and senior high school, Gu Xian used to give me rides to and from school on his bicycle. He was a man of few words, listening as I chattered away, unmoving even at the funniest moments. Perhaps only the wind knew if he laughed then, because I was always popular at school. He said he hated the feeling of being talked about when walking with me, so we made a pact not to act like we knew each other on campus, and after Shen Tang came into the picture, he would bring only one milk tea when he met up with me and Shen Tang waiting for him. It was strawberry flavored, Shen Tang's favorite. But he forgot, I also loved milk tea, my favorite being chocolate flavored. Gu Xian, what do you think? I said somberly. Is there a need to go back to how things were? Shen Tang only has eyes for you. She's faking it, I can tell. Gu Xian finally admitted. I couldn't help but scoff. Amusing yourself by letting her torment me, are you? A flicker passed through Gu Xian's eyes. When Xiao, I just wanted you to tone down your brilliance a bit. You're so dazzling that I always feel you won't stay by my side forever. I'm sorry, This was the first time in my life I heard Gu Xian apologize to anyone. Unfortunately, this apology was too late to mean anything. I think we have nothing left to say. Some people admire roses for their beauty, while others fear getting hurt by their thorns and choose to do whatever it takes to make them wither. Such selfish people do not deserve my forgiveness. Suddenly, a frantic figure ran towards us. Ding Luoyan's face was pale, and she was on the verge of tears. It's bad. When Zhu Xuanran has started fighting with someone. There are many of them and they've been drinking. Call the police quickly. When we arrived at the scene, I saw fragments scattered all over the alley and faint traces of blood. People were strewn about in disarray, and my heart shattered. Nobody go over there. My voice was low. I had never been so calm yet so frantic. Gu Xian and Ding Luoyan were startled by my expression. Gu Xian still wanted to move forward but was sternly stopped by Ding Luoyan. When Xiao, you go. If anything feels wrong, call us immediately. The police and ambulance are on their way. I nodded. I knew that at this moment, Zhu Xuanran only wanted to see me. I walked slowly forward. The ground was littered with many people, all bearing severe marks of being beaten with clubs. I couldn't imagine my boyfriend, alone and unsupported, facing this mob, but he still won. He wasn't unharmed, he just crazily held on until the end. Shentang was also there, kneeling on the ground, trembling all over and babbling something. Yes, the drunk man who was harassing the girl earlier was bothering Shentang. The boy with her at the time was Gu Xian. Gu Xian couldn't let go of Shentang's docile charm, but he also couldn't let go of me, his childhood sweetheart. How could I not be disgusted by such a man? I just couldn't stand how Gu Xian left me again to go to her. I walked towards a less crowded area in a fit of pique, and just by the parking lot entrance, I encountered that group. I was so scared. I said that our school's beauty, Wen Xiao, was very attractive. If they dared, they should go find her. Shentang was shaking violently, kneeling on the ground and stuttering, until she finally passed out. Zhu Xuanran, who had been struggling to keep upright on his knees, let go of the wooden stick in his hand and also collapsed, but in the moment he fell, I caught him. Qiao Qiao. I saw liquid falling onto his shoulder. I realized then, I was crying. Why cry? Qiao Qiao. The boy's face was somewhat pale, but he still smiled at me happily. Look, I took them all down by myself. Like a child waiting to be praised, Zhu Xuanran said weakly. Qiao Qiao, I had a very real dream. In the dream, that bald drunk drove into you, and I almost went mad. I remember his face very clearly, so I couldn't help but follow them. When I heard Shentang leading them to you, everything I saw in the dream suddenly flooded my mind. I couldn't control my emotions, and just, fool, I suddenly laughed through my tears, whether in my past life or this one. He always goes all out to stand up for me. That him, determined to protect me and not allow anyone to harm me, has never changed. Zhu Xuanran rested his head on my shoulder, and I heard him whisper softly, Qiao Qiao, unlike in the dream, I can finally protect you by your side. I fought back the sting in my eyes and reached out to gently trace the contours of his face. I whispered softly, little dog, I've come to take you home. The last letter he sent me in a past life contained a lengthy message. The language of Bellflower speaks of eternal love and hopeless love. My love for you is eternal, yet I know I may never see you turn back. You surely don't know a boy named Zhu Xuanran, nor would you know that blue was the color you wore when I first saw you. That day, you were wearing a fairy-like long blue dress, carrying a backpack, walking under the shade of trees on a small path. The moment I saw you, my whole world became clear and bright. I had never seen such a beautiful girl before. Pointing at you, I told my brother, is that the school belle Wen Xiao? I must win her over. Ironically, I later realized I was just a coward. I only dared to watch you from a distance, never brave enough to approach. The countless times we crossed paths were actually moments I had deliberately planned, building up courage over and over again. At some point, I suddenly realized that such a dazzling girl belonged to the world, not to Zhu Xuanran. That day, I suddenly felt an overwhelming need to see him. For the first time, I ran out of the house with my weak body, and in my haste, I was struck by a car while crossing the street and died on the spot. Fortunately, from this misfortune, I was reborn. Wen Xiao does not belong to this world. Wen Xiao belongs only to Zhu Xuanran, my most beloved little dog. Please believe that this time I will never let go of your hand.